Is being recorded.
Thank you, and I'll share the Greenbelt Community Pledge. The strength of Greenbelt is diverse people living together in a spirit of cooperation. We celebrate all people. By sharing together, we are all enriched. We strive to be a respectful, welcoming community that is open, accessible, safe, and fair. Okay, and if you could please join us in a moment of silent reflection as we pause to remember residents and others who have passed away since the last council meeting. Resident Judy Carciero and former resident Eileen Connolly. Please join us in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you very much. I see we've been joined by State's Attorney Tara Jackson, and in the interest of time, I would suggest that we go ahead and special order. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, yeah, I would move to special order State's Attorney Jackson's presentation to now so that we can be respectful of her time.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So welcome. With over 2 decades of service to Prince George's County as a prosecutor, chief administrative officer, acting county executive, and now as our chief law enforcement officer, Tara Jackson. You're dedicated to your career, justice, fairness, and community. So welcome. It is so nice to have you join us today.
Good evening, Mayor Jordan and members of the council. Thank you for having me here today. I just wanted to briefly give you an overview of what's been happening in the state's attorney's office, and certainly would entertain any questions that you have of me tonight. But thank you for having me here. I also want to acknowledge Police Chief Bowers. We have worked well together over the last 9 months or so. I have regular municipal chief meetings in my office, and he certainly has been a part of those meetings. So I want to acknowledge him here tonight. So last year I was appointed to the state's attorney's role in June of 2025 when Ms. Brayboy, as most of you know, was elected to assume the position of county executive. And so for those of you who don't know, the law says that if there's a vacancy in the office of the state's attorney, then the circuit court judges of the circuit court appoint the interim state's attorney. And the judges had an application process, and I applied, and I was appointed interim state's attorney. And of course, if I want to stay in the role, then I have to be successful in an election to stay past December of this year. So this is my third time serving as Prince George's County, third time serving in the state's attorney's office. I was a prosecutor fresh out of law school in the state's attorney's office for about 4 years. And then about a decade later after that, I was served as the principal deputy state's attorney's office and ran the state's attorney's office at that time. I say that to say that the transition, to let you know that the transition, I won't say it was easy because transitions are never easy, but it was certainly manageable because I understood the state's attorney's office. In fact, I was told on one day in June that I was going to be appointed to the state's attorney's office, and then I was sworn in the next day and actually moved into the state's attorney's office. And so there wasn't much lead time, but I've been able to bring in a good team in the office, and we've been able to keep the work of the office going without interruption. I would like to just give you an overview of crime in the county, not only in Greenbelt, but county-wide to include the municipalities. In 25, at the end of 25, we saw that there had been a 19% decline in violent crime overall as compared to 24, and homicides were down about 40%, 25 as compared to 24. Carjackings were down about 55%, 25 as compared to 24. Unfortunately, we did start this year with a few homicides, as you all know, but the numbers for homicides are still on the decline in 26 over 2025. So we're going in the right direction. Of course, one homicide, one violent crime is too many. And so we continue to have lots of work to do in the state's attorney's office. Currently, this year, 26 over 25, homicides are down 33%, carjackings down 58%, and but assaults are not down. Assaults are actually up in the county slightly. Domestic violence crimes overall are up 13%. Now, homicides, domestic violence homicides are not up, but domestic violence assaults are up about 13%. And then assaults with no weapon are up 13%. So what we're seeing is more assaults, but fewer crimes committed with handguns, which is good that we're seeing fewer crimes committed with handguns. I just briefly will identify some of the key priorities we have in our office. Number one is going to be violent crime because simply we cannot accept violent crime. We should not accept violent crime in our community. Specifically, I have a focus on repeat gun offenders, because what we're finding, especially with our homicides, is oftentimes people are, we're seeing impulse crimes. And what I mean by that is people don't necessarily leave intending to kill someone, but they get into a dispute. They have a weapon on their person, and then they end up killing the person that they've gotten into an argument with. So what we want to do is really focus on reducing the number of the number of guns that are being carried in our community. And in fact, in that regard, I went to Annapolis this year and argued on behalf of a piece of legislation. We actually put forward the legislation to close a loophole that we saw in gun crimes. Now that unfortunately the legislation did not pass, but maybe we'll be back next year to advocate on behalf of that same piece of legislation. And just so you know, we are able to give enhanced penalties to repeat gun offenders, but only if they live in the state of Maryland. And so we all know that crime is fluid, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And so if someone comes into the district and is a repeat gun offender, I know that they had a conviction in Washington, DC. I cannot use that conviction in Washington, DC to subject them to enhanced penalties. And so that was a loophole that we saw that we wanted to close. So we're focused on gun offenses, focused on youth accountability. Really everywhere I go, people ask me about crime committed by our young people. And what I say is we're going to hold them accountable. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, it depends on the crime. And so if it's a school fight, that's one kind of accountability. And if it's a carjacking, then that's another type of accountability. So we're focused on holding our young people accountable, but at the same time, we're focused on preventing crime in the first place, especially as it relates to our young people. So we've started some programming that we're very proud of. We've started a truancy initiative where we're trying to, we are partnering with the schools to reach out to our most chronically absent children in elementary, middle school, and in high school to provide wraparound services not only to the child, but also to the family. And Mary Jordan, I see you looking at your watch, so you just tell me when you want me to stop.
I was looking at something else.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm not going on too long. But we do want to prevent as much crime as we can, especially with our young people. We've got a youth council that we've begun so that we can hear from our young people and young adults. We also have a program for young adults, first-time nonviolent offenders. We have a program called Back on Track. And so if you're a nonviolent offender, you are eligible for that program. And if you're willing to hold yourself accountable, meaning to take responsibility for your crime and go through, perform a boatload of community service and comply with rigorous guidelines. And at the end of the day, you will end up with no record and you'll be able to get an expungement. So there's several avenues that we have. That program actually has been in place for years, but several avenues that we're using to try and prevent crime in the first place. Or to give people opportunities if they commit low-level offenses and they are willing to take accountability for those offenses. We're certainly concerned about business crimes. In fact, this morning I met with a retail theft group in the county because we know that businesses oftentimes want to leave our community because of issues which may seem simple to some of us, but to others, not so simple. So we're focused on retail theft and financial scams. I've been moving around the county to educate mostly our seniors around financial fraud and scams because we think we can prevent crime by education. We're talking to our seniors and others about different types of scams, partnering with our police departments to do that. And we're very proud of that work because I think if we tell one person, then that person hopefully tells another. And really the message right there is stop and verify, right? So that's the simple message that we've been passing around, that we've been communicating to people in our community. And then lastly, I'll say in terms of priorities, we're very concerned about data. One thing that I am pretty interested in is being able to collect data so that we ourselves in the state's attorney's office can hold ourselves accountable, right? It's the data that I will use to determine how our prosecutors are doing on a day-to-day basis. And it's the data that you will use to determine how we're doing in serving you. So we didn't really have a good system for collecting data in the state's attorney's office. So we're trying to perfect that system and then push out data so that we can be more transparent and the community knows exactly what it is or how we're prosecuting cases. Prosecutors have a lot of discretion. And so it's important to me for you to be able to understand how it is that we're using that discretion. And in fact, we just pushed out our first crime data dashboard within the last 2 months. And it's a start. You know, we've got about 4 categories there on the dashboard, but we're going to continue to grow that dashboard so that it will be helpful to members in the community. So, Mayor, I will stop there and certainly entertain any questions.
So,
that you may
Madam State's Attorney, you certainly have a lot on your plate. Very, very busy person. This is a big county, and there's so many different aspects to public safety here in the city of Greenbelt, Prince George's County, and throughout the county. You mentioned youth. I know summertime is coming up, and in the district, there's been a lot of back and forth about youth curfews, also car rallies and gatherings. Do you have any thoughts that you'd like to share about things that we've been doing here in Prince George's County?
Well, in a prior role, I was involved in establishing the youth curfew. And what I'll say about that is it's a deterrent. Do we see that? At least that's the way I looked at it in a prior role, but not the solution. And I still, even though I don't have anything to do with establishing the curfew now, I see it the same. I mean, nobody is looking to, and I don't think our police chiefs are looking to just round up children and lock them up because they're gathering. But we do need to get a handle on large gatherings that become unruly. And so I don't see a curfew as necessarily the solution. I think it's going to take more than that.
Thank you, Council. Any questions? Yes, please.
I was curious in some of the data that you shared and some of the things that we've heard from Chief Bowers. He's talked a lot about repeat offenders. How are you seeing that data? Do you see that going down or not? I know, especially in Greenbelt, there was, especially right after the COVID 19 came through, there was just a lot of the same young adults doing the same crimes. And so they were going in, they were being arrested, and then they were coming back out. I'm wondering what you're seeing now.
Well, one of the things, that's one of the reasons why I want to be able to gather data is so that I can answer questions like this. Unfortunately, we are not yet at the point where I have reliable data for repeat offenders across the office. But what I can tell you, we do have data around young people and gun offenses. And we saw that about, I think, a fourth of our young persons that had committed, that had gun offenses that were adjudicated in juvenile court. So they weren't in adult court. Well, they started in adult court, but then when they were moved to juvenile court, about a fourth of those reoffended within a year. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is push, I'll say work with our Department of Juvenile Services, the State Department of Juvenile Services, to build a greater level of accountability into their diversion programming. So if you're going to divert a child at the early stages, a young person at the early stages, or give them some sort of pathway that doesn't lead to the criminal justice system, then you've got to build accountability into that, whatever that diversion is, so that the young person takes it seriously. Because otherwise, we're seeing repeat offenders.
Thank you very much. How can individuals get in contact with your office? You mentioned scams with seniors and so many things with your remarks. So what's the best way to contact your office?
Well, I will give that to you. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I will certainly. Kwani, may I ask? There's a website I should. Thank you. Well, there's a number that you can call, but I want to get you the website information. So I'll get that to you before I leave.
Okay, thank you so much.
I think it's just PGSAO, but I want to make sure.
Okay. Well, we want to be very respectful of your time. We have a packed agenda tonight. Are there any other questions from council?
We appreciate you coming and giving us the
Thank you
update.
so much.
Thank you so much. Somebody did ask for some specific answers to questions about crimes in Greenbelt, but I have those just in case anybody has any, would like those answers. But I can, I'm sorry, I can submit those later, Mayor.
We can share them, I think.
I mean, if it's, how lengthy is
How-
the
It's-
list?
It's not, it was just
I would
the
think-
status of prosecutions related to 3 fatal shootings.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
please,
yeah,
please.
Okay. All right. There was a 14-year-old
Yes.
Bayong that was killed in October of 2025, and there were 2 juveniles that were arrested in that case and 2 adults. And all defendants were held without bond, and that trial is set for September the 29th, September 29th of this year. There was also Mr. Mansell Johnson was killed, 49 years old, in September of 2025. And that trial is set for July 7th. And that the defendants were 1 adult, 21-year-old Ramos, and then 2 male juveniles were defendants in that case. And again, that's set for July 7th. And as far as I know, there was another, unfortunately, murder of Juan Gonzalez in
Yes.
October 2025. And as far as I know, no one has been charged by the police in that case.
Thanks for your close collaboration with our police department and with the county police. And thanks for all you do. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. So let me just say, tonight's session is open to the public, as are all council sessions and meetings, except for executive sessions as authorized by state law. Residents may observe our deliberations, and we pause periodically to provide an opportunity for public comment. If you wish to speak during one of the designated times, if you're here in person, just raise your hand, and after being recognized, you can approach the microphone. You'll need to state your name and provide an address. If you are on Zoom, you can use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, or you can raise your virtual hand. And once again, you'll need to provide a name and an address. We don't accept anonymous comments. And finally, if you're watching remotely, just send an email. The email address is questions@greenbeltmd.gov. So please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. and address only the question under consideration. We ask that you remain civil and avoid disparaging others, questioning the motives of others. So tonight we have a packed house, and I suspect that we have a number of petitions on the same topic. And I want to just let you know that we actually have an item on the agenda, I believe it's item number 10 or 11, where we'll be discussing the Equity and Inclusion Program. So if there are a number of you that are here to speak on that topic, I'd like to ask you just for one representative to speak. And if you can hold your comments until that section of the agenda, we'll have a robust discussion. But at this time, I do need to open the floor for petitions and requests. And if you have, if you're looking for an action from the city, you can submit a petition or request to the city manager or city council, either in writing or by speaking at a meeting such as tonight. And we'll hear these petitions. We don't immediately respond to questions at the meeting, but once a petition is presented, the city clerk records the petition. City staff will actually look into the matter and discuss the best resolution, and that's how it works. So once again, are there any petitions or requests? Yes, please, Mr. Gasper.
Hello, I want to thank you all for being here for us. I've been here to speak to the council in a while, but I have an important perspective that I'd like to share with you. I think the last time I shared this information, it was with only Emmett and, our Mayor Jordan and our council person, Ms. Pope, were present. So we have new council, new change, but same things need to be looked at and taken care of by the city. Basically, I did a first presentation to the city council about the condition of Hanover Parkway and things that were needed over there back on 11/26/2018. And then I followed it up with another second request presentation on 12/31/2021. And as of this point, no road improvements, painting, repaving has been done, regardless of these pleas to improve our Hanover Parkway quality and safety for all. I'd like to point out that the City Planning and Development Department worked together with me, listened to me, made their own decisions from our conferences and we went over the whole roadway, 2 different time periods, and did an analysis, which I have the copies of the analysis that I presented to the council before to share with you now. And they made a plan to do almost everything and some other things as well that I endorsed and recommended, but none of it has been done. And I think the council needs to recognize this and move forward with the budget, appropriating things well to take care of this, which has been failed upon for our Greenbelt City residents. I wanted to point out that these are requests that are not even worked on. The repaving of Hanover Parkway south of 193. In the time since my last presentation, other Greenbelt roads have been repaved that are not nearly as important to us, have minimal amount of travelers. Matthew Street, portions of Mandan Road, the back portion of Crescent Road, portions of other Greenbelt roads as well. And I think it's time for us to recognize that Hanover Parkway needs its improvements for the safety of the pedestrians and the better travel. It is the most heavily traveled road taken care of by the city of Greenbelt, and it needs to be recognized and maintained as such. Then there are no concrete bus platforms in Greenbelt East, but I've just seen one being built on Ridge Road at Ridge Road, at Research Road, and there's a 10th to a 20th of the travel on that road as compared to Hanover Parkway. And we have our spots that need to be fixed for where these heavy buses go in and out at. And I could show you pictures of where it's been patched with tar. It hasn't been concreted, even though the traffic volume is 10 to 20 times more than where they have been done. And then we need something new. We need an update of the outdoor weight training facilities at Trim Hills Park. That has not been maintained. I've seen things broken and taken weeks, if not months, to fix. Actually, some things have not even been fixed at all. The flooring down needs to be repaired. The painting of crosswalks on Hanover Parkway, something so simple. but it never happened. I can show you pictures now that match the pictures that I took back in 2018. It's never done.
Mr. Gasper, so with the council rules, we have limited petitions and requests to 3 minutes and not 5. Is that correct?
No.
No.
I think we
Okay.
did
Please
5.
keep-
I
continue.
have like 4 more bullets and then I
You
was
got it.
hoping to attend the budget session
Yes.
and speak up then as well as about these.
Yeah, we will
items.
have that public hearing a
Following
little bit
this,
later.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I got 4 more bullets, and that is the painting of traffic lines and symbols, and then a bike share for Greenbelt East,
Yes.
which we spoke about, but has kind of like gone away. And then a public information sharing program. It could be at a public kiosk like at Tri Mills Park and other similar sites in Old Greenbelt and Greenbelt West, because not everyone uses the internet. And plus, sometimes emails, I've found myself to not be on the list anymore for certain things and not get updates about them. For all communications, we need an alternative, as well as on some key projects like the new trash plan that we have now. You never contacted my development, the city of Greenbelt, Department of Public Works and Transportation. They never contacted us whatsoever. They went to the condos. And so we need an alternative way of informing the people to the things that are going to be happening around them, other than just depending upon internet services and email systems. Okay. And then as well as the Schramm Hills Park fenced practice field that evolved. I never knew about it. And it's been completed. And now there's no information for people. I have a video. My last thing here. I have a video of 7 men who used to come over to that spot to play soccer. And it's closed to them. They can't go to it anymore. Last time I saw them, they were at the baseball field and got cut out. So these things, I have a list of them. I have my previous presentations. I'd like to share them with you.
Thank you, Mr. Gasper.
Okay, thank you very much.
Other petitions or requests? Mr. Orleans?
Thank you. In a few minutes, council will be voting to approve a report from the closed session of May 4th. I note in the information provided that council acted to affirm the city manager's personnel decision in a specific case. I realize that all present that night want to maintain secrecy about that meeting and about that case, but I would argue that if someone was terminated or otherwise disciplined, and that vote by the city manager and that vote was just affirmed by council, that residents of the city of Greenbelt have a right to know that maybe an employee that they know is no longer with the city, and at least in general terms, why, or had been disciplined, and at least general terms know why. Later tonight, council will also be possibly voting to amend the charter with regard to collective bargaining. Until such time as there is collective bargaining, there's no opportunity for employees of any department who would be recognized to participate in such collective bargaining, how their disputes with the city will be mediated. So until that time, until effective bargaining about terms of employment are negotiated between their representatives and the city manager, we have only to rely on, apparently, decisions made by city management with regard to disciplining in any way any city employee. So I repeat, it may be that council doesn't want to disclose everything that occurred with regard to the decision of a individual employee, but in general terms, council and city management should describe more than simply a decision has been made and then affirmed by council. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other petitions or requests? Well, hearing none, we'll move to the next topic. The petitions are recorded by the city clerk. They're referred to staff for research, and they are often referred for resolution to an advisory committee, sometimes placed on a future meeting agenda. So we do have a listing of all petitions that is posted on the city's website for public information. So you can find that under the administration section of the city website. So at this time, we're going to move to the next section of the agenda, the presentation section of the
Consent
agenda.
And then the agenda.
I am so sorry. Are there any modifications to the consent agenda? Hold on. Hearing none, could I please have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second? Councilmember Niesel has seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And that's going to bring us to the agenda. Are there any modifications to the agenda? Yes, please.
Yeah, I would like to propose, given that we still have several proclamations and a number of topics tonight and a full house, that we remove item 13, the Greenbelt Station Park Planter Project, and item 16, the State Highway Administration Don't Block the Box striping from tonight's agenda, and address those later in the interest of time.
Is there a second? Thank you. Just in terms of discussion, I think in council rules, we've included a measure where if the meeting goes past 9:30, we have to vote to continue. Wouldn't that, and items that are left on the agenda would be rolled to the next agenda? Wouldn't that adequately cover the situation?
It could, but I think we are clearly not going to get done before 9:30, given the number of people in the room. So I think preemptively removing them, since neither of those are urgent, and the item that was added related to the funding for the boardwalk is actually urgent. These are not things that we need to address tonight, and so therefore I think we should just plan ahead, know that we're not going to get to them, and we'll move them to a later meeting.
Respectfully, I would counter that the proposal on Hanover Parkway is of some urgency. The number of residents that have been dealing with the obstructions there, the problems has lingered for a long, long time. I'm not going to belabor the point, but let's go ahead and take a vote on the agenda as amended. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. So that is going to bring us to the communication section of the agenda. And first up, we've got the Memorial Day Poppy presentation. Sandy Dutton, Rusty Berg, and others from the American Legion. Auxiliary are here, post 136. Each year, the presentation is made in honor of the annual remembrance of Memorial Day and also those who have died in combat since serving in the armed forces. So if one of you would like to go to the microphone, you're welcome to do that. And it looks like you have some poppies there to present.
Thank you, sir. In the state of Maryland, can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Dutton.
Okay. In the state of Maryland, all poppies are still handmade by veterans, which we love and we think it's important. The auxiliary compensates our veterans for their work, and it has a true meaning to them. All donations received from our poppy distribution are used solely to enhance the lives of our veterans. We love and are very proud to support our veterans. Each year, Greenbelt Unit observes Poppy Month by placing a flower arrangement at both St. Hugh's Church and Greenridge House. We also include bowls of poppies for folks to take and wear a poppy with pride. Bowls of poppies are placed in the administrative offices of our schools and throughout the Greenbelt American Legion Post Home on Greenbelt Road. We also put bowls of poppies at the police station, and we'd like to leave a bowl here. What do you think?
I think we can do that.
Our traditional poppy ad will be in the Greenbelt News Review later this month. We encourage everyone to wear your poppies with pride in honor of all the sacrifices made by our veterans in active duty, and please don't get them wet. That would be terrible. As always, thank you, City Council, for allowing us to join you to celebrate Poppy Month. We truly appreciate being here, and we truly appreciate all of you. And thanks, staff and Bonita, for helping us with scheduling the event. Now, I'd like to present Rusty Bagg, and she has a few comments.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank all of you for allowing us to make this presentation. May 1941. My first grade class was all excited because it was going to be Decoration Day on Saturday, and we had been invited to participate in a parade. None of us really too clear on what that involved, but we were excited nevertheless. That day dawned bright, sunny, blue sky. Had to be at school at 8 o'clock with flowers. The only flowers in my yard were a bridal wreath bush. If you're familiar with that, spirea, I think is their proper name. Little white flowers, very pretty. And I traipsed over to school. We lined up. My class was at the very rear of the parade, and we were monitored by a man in a uniform. I knew it wasn't a soldier's uniform, and I knew it wasn't a policeman's uniform, but was one of our Veteran Service Organization uniforms, which of course at that time I had no idea. But we started off. It was hot. It was dusty. It got hotter. We finally made it to the cemetery, and the parade dispersed. There were no bands. There were no floats. It wasn't like a Greenbelt Labor Day parade at all. And I didn't know what to do. So somebody said, well, find a grave that doesn't have any flowers and put your flowers on it. So found a grave that didn't have any. And what I had left was a bunch of twigs. If I'd only had a poppy that day. But my point is, 6 months later, December 7th, 1941, we were at war again. And we had just finished honoring those who had given their lives in World War I. I hope that all of the residents and friends of Greenbelt who do wear a poppy on Poppy Day, which is Friday before Memorial Day, that you wear that with the understanding that war is not, the cost of war is not just the hardware and the bombs and the software that we use to send them wherever they are going. It's the unestimatable cost of human sacrifice, not only the lives of those that we will lose if we continue on the path that we're going, and also all of the lives that have been lost or the lives that have been ruined forever of the families and those servicemen who came back but did not come back whole. So please wear a poppy with that understanding, with pride in those who have given their lives in service to our country and those who may be called upon in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Rusty.
And one more thing, I'd just like to present our unit president, Elizabeth Darnell. We're happy that she could be here with us, and we just wanted everybody to meet her.
Welcome, Elizabeth. So now, what do we have to do to get one of these poppies?
Let me think about that.
About.
I already gave them mine.
I'll put in for Jenny too. I'll put in for Jenny. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I have mine already. I'm going to put it in there. Thank you.
And while this is happening, I want to remind folks that the annual Memorial Day observance will take place on Saturday, May the 26th, May the,
I think it's Monday, the
Monday,
25th.
Monday, the 25th at 11 a.m. That's going to be at the War Memorial in front of Roosevelt Center. And afterwards, there's a reception at the Greenbelt American Legion Post 136. Yeah, it's open to the public. So Legion Auxiliary, thank you so much for all you do. Thank you. Okay, next up is a proclamation acknowledging Jewish American Heritage Month. Rabbi Orsky and other members of the Jewish community in Greenbelt, will you please come forward? I'd like to present this proclamation to you all. Okay.
Hi.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You can come a little bit closer if you like. Whereas since 2006, each president of the United States has issued a proclamation designating May as Jewish American Heritage Month, honoring the more than 350 years of Jewish American history and celebrating the contributions and achievements of Jewish Americans to the life and culture of this nation. And whereas the month of May was chosen to commemorate the highly successful celebration of the 350th anniversary of American Jewish history, held in May of 2004, and whereas Jewish Americans have long championed religious freedom, civil rights, and the rule of law, helping to define the foundational principles upon which this nation was built, and whereas Jewish Americans continue to enrich every dimension of American life as educators, entrepreneurs, athletes, artists, scientists, entertainers, public servants, and community leaders, and whereas the city of Greenbelt is proud to be the home of Jewish American residents, neighbors, community members whose contributions strengthen the fabric of our city and reflect our shared values of inclusion, dignity, mutual respect. Now, therefore, I, Emmett V. Jordan, by the authority vested in me by the residents and City Council of Greenbelt, do hereby proclaim May as Jewish American Heritage Month in the city of Greenbelt. I encourage all residents to learn about and celebrate Jewish American history and culture by exploring the programs and collections of institutions such as the Greenbelt Museum, the Library of Congress, the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, the National Archives, the National Museum of American Jewish History, and the National Gallery of Art. I'd like to present this to you all. Rabbi Orsky.
Yep.
A couple people just stepped down with her. We can assign somebody to get them.
Thank you for receiving this proclamation. Thank you. If any of you would like to speak at the podium here.
Let's see. Please mention Graham Parksman. Yes. That's one, yeah. You want to, I could call you up. I want to thank Mayor Jordan and the Greenbelt City Council. During our time when we are so worried about an upsurge in anti-Semitism, it's gratifying to know that this recognition from the Greenbelt City Council has been made official, and we very, very much appreciate it. I've been part of Greenbelt for off and on, but mostly on for 50 years, and I've always felt Greenbelt to be an exceptional place in terms of offering a welcome home to all. And I very, very much appreciate that. So thank you.
We'd be remiss not to say that one of the stalwart leaders passed away yesterday. Abraham Foxman, director of the Anti-Defamation League, a leader against anti-Semitism and other hate issues.
I'll bring the microphone.
Proclamation. National Physical Fitness and Sports Month.
It's on.
Oh, it's on? Okay, thank you, thank you. So whereas since 1983, each president of the United States has proclaimed May as National Physical Fitness and Sports Month, encouraging Americans to meet the recommended 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity per week and to embrace active, healthy lifestyles. And whereas regular physical activity prevents chronic disease, improves cardiovascular and mental health, reduces anxiety, and strengthens quality of life for residents of all ages. And whereas the city of Greenbelt proudly provides parks, trails, sidewalks, bikeways that encourage healthy habits, reduce barriers to movement, and foster connection among neighbors. And whereas the Bike to Work Day on Friday, May the 15th, 2026, and the Kids to Park Day on Saturday, May 16th, 2026, reflect our community's commitments to active transportation, outdoor recreation, family wellness, with Greenbelt serving as a regional pit stop at the Greenbelt Aquatic and Fitness Center for the Bike to Work activity. And whereas these observances honor the work of parks and recreation professionals, public health advocates, educators, employers, and civic partners. Therefore, I, Emmett V. Jordan, by the authority vested in me by the residents and City Council of Greenbelt, do hereby proclaim May as National Physical Fitness and Sports Month in the City of Greenbelt, and I encourage all residents to walk, run, cycle, play, and use Move in May as a tag to share their journey and inspire their neighbors. So the reason why we're doing this is Bike to Work Day is coming up on Friday. And Mayor Pro Tem, are you going to be there?
I will be. I will be leading the convoy from Center Greenbelt to Goddard. So yeah, I think we're planning to leave around 8:30. So Goddard employees are welcome to come all the way. Other employees, well, other people can ride with us, but we'll have to stop before we get to the gate. But no, we're going to go the back way, I think.
Thank you.
And,
We did go the front way last year, but
So, the pit stop will be open from 6:30 to 8:30 a.m. And at 7 o'clock, we've now got another group going down to College Park to join the convoy going downtown. Now, I personally will be on that ride. I'm not going to go downtown. And I'd like to urge all of my colleagues to come out with us as well. And who else is going to Bike to Work on Friday?
I was going to say some people live a little too far from work to bike.
They do. And
I work in Rockville, Maryland. So.
I will stop. I will stop by before I go
But
to work.
You
But
can.
It is allowed in the rules. You are allowed to bike to public transit, if you like, or just ride your bike then telework. That is also I've heard those are also invited on those days as well. It's a great way to get out and about. And can I make one comment?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I'm glad that we're recognizing National Physical Fitness and Sports Month. This was back in the 1980s, and obviously, I think in a lot of ways we have not trended in the right direction. Perhaps we need to remember that it's a compact we make with each other so that our young people have safe places to play, that we have safe routes to get to school, so that you don't have to ride Greenbelt Road to get to Goddard, and that we have strong access and we fight, the apartheid in our food system that values some people more than others in thinking that they deserve nutrition. And other people have to get their nutritional value from a dollar store, or a bodega versus other people having access to grocery stores. So absolutely encouraging people to get out is great. And let's also make a pledge to one another that we are going to take on the social determinants of health that we can impact together as well.
as well. So this weekend, we're pretty busy. Council members are pretty busy typically on weekends. As well as the city manager and assistant city manager, to each of you, to the council member or city manager who gets in the most steps on Saturday or Sunday combined, I'll take you to lunch, a nice healthy lunch. We won't go to McDonald's. We'll go someplace else. Not to disparage. They have some healthy choices there too.
Not going to get those.
But I'm issuing that challenges, and city managers, you're in on this too. Lunch to whoever gets the highest number of steps.
How are we tracking?
Well, I think we have self-reporting.
Mr. Mayor, before you go on, may I check the cables on your microphone?
Sure.
Because it's knocked off all the other mic. The pooling.
I think that's it. Let me mention one more thing before we move on. This is actually National Law Enforcement Week, and the Greenbelt Police Department proudly recognizes the dedicated men and women who serve our community each and every day. Behind every badge is a commitment to protect others, answer calls for help, and stand ready during difficult moments. Law enforcement is more than a profession, it's a calling built on service, sacrifice, and compassion. So this week, we encourage the whole community to take a moment to thank an officer, dispatcher, civilian, staff member, or public safety professional. Your support, encouragement, and appreciation truly makes a difference.
They're actually doing the Unity tour. The bike tour. Yeah, they're actually doing it, our team, and they're keeping updates on Facebook. I don't know if you've seen it. I tried to share it. It's actually really cool.
Yeah, I saw some photos of
Yeah.
that. Yeah. It's working now?
Yep.
Okay. Yes, please.
Public indoor pool in the county?
That's a great point. We do have our historic Greenbelt outdoor swimming pool was in fact the first public desegregated pool in Prince George's County. So it's something we're very proud of. So next on the agenda, we have a public hearing on the 2027 proposed budget. So on March 23rd, 2026, the city manager presented the proposed budget for fiscal year 2027 to the city council. Since then, the council has held 7 work sessions to review the budget. The proposed budget is available online at greenbeltmd.gov, including the agenda materials and recording of the budget work sessions. There's a link there. So at this time, I'm going to call to order a public hearing. If any members of the public want to make a comment about the budget proposal, now is a good time to get that on the record. So I hereby convene a public hearing on the FY 2027 proposed budget. Please. It has to be about the 2027 proposed budget. Yes, Ms. Rosenthal.
Hi, Laura Rosenthal, 2 Court Garden Way. I just wanted to commend the city staff, I think specifically James Wisniewski and also Ms. Councilmember McKinney, who I think had the idea that now there's a budget page where there's a very brief summary of each of the budget sessions. And there's also a question and answer document where you can see questions that were asked by the staff and also by the public. And so it makes it possible to actually understand what's been going on in the 9 sessions. Whereas I know last year I was complaining, like, if I don't want to watch 3 hours times 9, how am I supposed to know what to talk about? So I just really appreciate you're making the budget more accessible to the public. At this point, I haven't read all the summaries, so I don't have anything particularly to comment on. I don't know, is this the second and last budget hearing, or will there be one more after this?
This is second and last. Yeah.
Second and last. Okay. Anyway, so thank you for doing that and making everything more accessible. It's a very beautiful page, but it also has really good information on it.
And there is nothing hindering anyone from submitting written comments or even an email on the budget. We're still, the budget's not approved yet, so we can accept those. But as far as a public hearing tonight, are there other individuals who'd like to speak? Yes, Mr. Rand.
Thank you, Bob Rand, 19 Ridge Road. So I understand there is a budget item. I'm sorry, there's an agenda item about the DEI office, but I would like these remarks to be part of the hearing. At the first hearing 2 weeks ago, I pointed out there didn't seem to be concrete discussion of DEI implementation by Greenbelt departments. The budget is more than numbers. It's about priorities for governance. At that time, I had no idea that staff were proposing to restructure the DEI office. If I had, I would have said then what I'm saying today. Please don't. This work is so important, it requires an independent office headed by senior staff. I'm a little bit confused also about the economic reason for trying to claw back the funds. As I understand it, the budget already reflects the DEI position as a senior position at a GC 15 level. So I'm really not, I understand this was part of a work session, but or this proposal, but I'm not sure exactly what the economic reason is for that, and I'm not sure that the materials that I've seen for the discussion tonight address that question. My main concern, though, is that I'm not hearing from Tyra. This is the leader that was hired by the city as its first DEI officer. I'd like to hear about her experience of working on DEI in Greenbelt for 3 years and her vision for the future. Without that, I can't really fully assess where we are and where we need to go. So my question is, where is she? I'd like to hear from her. Her absence from the public discussion for me speaks volumes. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, budget hearing comments? Mr. Gasper?
I want to thank the council for having this meeting and letting people speak up about situations that they think need attention from the city. And as you heard me speak earlier about Hanover Parkway, I really would like to speak up for the city of planning and development. That team worked together with me meticulously on the things that I thought needed to be done and reinforced it and said it was basically a plan, but the action speaks louder than the words. None of those things have happened. And I just want to emphasize how important it is for these changes that I mentioned, back in 2018 and 2021 to be implemented for the east part of Greenbelt to be treated fairly by the resources that the city of Greenbelt has to take care of all of the city. Now, I also thought it was very important that I provide you with the documents that I gave to you previously. I made single copies of the previous presentations. And
the city clerk, if you like.
Why for you all to have these? I've got a lot of pictures in there that show the inequities, the way that Hanover Parkway has been treated compared to the rest of the city of Greenbelt and its roads, even though Hanover Parkway is the most heavily traveled road cared for by the city of Greenbelt. And I also have a request about providing information to the people of the city of Greenbelt so we can be a part of things, more of a part of things when the time is appropriate. And I also sat back and I looked at, thanks to Benita, she gave me the information to connect to watching the budget. And I don't see anything in there for Hanover Parkway. I don't see any moves forward to do what was basically agreed to be done years ago. And so I'm very, well, not necessarily happy, but very glad that I can be up here and speak to the council in this great city of Greenbelt that I love and cherish about things that we as citizens feel are important to let you know about. And I would very much like to be a participant in any level that you need me at to tell you about the things that I know, because I've been here since 1979. I've ridden my bicycle thousands of times on Hanover Parkway. When you ride your bike, you get a little bit more observant to those potholes and those bad things. And I'm more than willing to pitch in at any time. All you have to do is let me know you need a little help, and I'm here for you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hartman? Yeah, City Manager?
I have some responses, Mr. Mayor, if you want me to jump in, or you want to wait
Hold
for the
till-
questions?
Hold till after the hearing.
The end of the hearing, perhaps. Mr. Hartman?
Michael Hartman, 2 Court Garden. I've mentioned this at some of the work sessions, but I'll mention it again. I really want to see a dedicated pot of money for establishing sidewalks in Greenbelt. It's part of the bike and pedestrian master plan that was developed many years ago. As far as I can see, I don't think any sidewalks have been built since that document came to be. And every year I ask for sidewalks that are either to be built or made contiguous with other sidewalks so that someone doesn't have to cross the street, including Crescent Road, to stay on the sidewalk. And I think that we're past the time of not doing anything for it. I'd really like to see in the budget dedicated money for that each year, to do a little bit each year. That's fine, but it's got to be done. During the 70s, we fought for low floor, wide door buses for people who use wheelchairs. And we said, well, you don't have to, replace the whole fleet. When one of the bus goes down and buy a new bus, you buy one that's accessible. The same way with building sidewalks. Every year you can do a little bit of sidewalk. You don't have to do the whole thing. But I think it's incumbent upon us as a walkable community to at least start doing it. When Councilmember Adams was here, he saw firsthand the difficulty in maneuvering around. And if Franklin Delano Roosevelt ever came to visit, he wouldn't be able to navigate our streets independently. And I think that's something we need to have for people to have a contiguous, safe sidewalk system. And I really like to see dedicated money for it each year. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other comments? Please, Ms. Wiseman had her.
I am Lois Rosado. I live on Lakecrest Drive. And my remarks deal with the need that we did not hear from the diversity and equity officer about the changes that are being proposed. And I did send a letter that explained why this work must be independent and have authority. Such work dies, according to experts, when placed in human resources. I appreciate very much the proposal that will be presented by Ms. McKinney, Councilmember McKinney, because it provides realistic options for the council to consider. I'm sure that the council members spoke with Ms. Smith concerning her original ideas on this matter. She did submit a proposal, but as Bob said, we haven't heard from her. How equity and inclusion work moves forward in Greenbelt rests on the renewed commitment from the City Council and to receive updates from department heads and to provide oversight wherever this function is placed. The second concern I have is that Sharice Liggins, Kevin Green, Chandria Andrews, John Mason, and now Tyra Smith appear to be chased out of administrative positions in the city government, and all are African Americans. This pattern needs to be investigated by the council. I strongly suggest that the council conduct an exit interview with Ms. Smith, which may prove to be revealing about the environment that exists within city administrative structure and then take appropriate action to stop that pattern. Lastly, an issue of equity. Again, why this office is important. An explanation needs to be made to the residents of Franklin Park about why 3 stop sign cameras have been placed there in addition to the 3 speed cameras that are already there. So these many cameras place an unfair financial burden on that community. This reminds me of what occurred in Ferguson, Missouri, in the African American section in town. Where else in Greenbelt does such surveillance exist? These are examples of why this city needs an equity and inclusion office, and I suggest you really relook at your budget. Thank you.
Are there any other comments specifically on the budget?
I also want to pick up on the DEI issue because I was very, very surprised when I saw that it was in the budget to eliminate the post and that it was a question. We're a long ways from actually digging the dirt that we need to dig and creating the roots that are going to grow into a real community that understands whether or not it's your job or your supervision, whether or not it's the city council, or we just have to have the principles. And one of the things I noticed when I was at the United We Dream, I wore different hats, and one of them was HR. And it's a very different environment when you are working with leaders as well as staff who are immigrants and who are fighting for their time to be able to stay in the city. We really dug into the our HR policies to make sure that they didn't speak to the possible punishment and grievances, but they spoke to the purpose of evaluations of where is this employee? How do we help them do their job? I was surprised because 3 years doesn't do it. I don't know if we'd ever have to be able to keep the DEI officer. It's not we did it type of piece. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments for the budget hearing? Yes, Mr. Hurling.
Yeah, I'm calling also in support of DEI. I think they've opened up a lot of our eyes as to the needs that people have that otherwise, without DEI, we might not know about them. I know that because I was in touch with, as often as all of you are, with the respective coaches of basketball, football, baseball, etc. And they were talking about something that DEI discovered, and also, our group that's been working for the last 3 years to try to also enlighten our public and provide opportunities for actions that we could take to improve our community. And that, of course, is the Reparation Commission. But one thing that came out very clearly, and it's just one example of a number of things that DEI, which, as well as the Reparations Commission, why they're both very, very important, is that the coaches out at the Spring Hill Lake Rec Center, they all said, Conrad, and meaning everybody, in the community, got to do something, because there are a lot of the youngsters that are not getting served. And the reason why is because it is very, very difficult for them to secure adequate transportation to get from A to B. If you have a game at Braden Field and you live, in either Greenbelt East or over in Franklin Park, unless you have an alternative way to get there, it's difficult. The transportation that is provided from WMATA and so forth is not adequate. And also, you have, in fact, Rick Gordon, and I wish he was still alive, and Carla, when they, their son Anthony and others that they know were trying to get to a sport event. It could be other events as well, dealing with the environment, a whole array of different issues. But what would happen is they would have to wait so long to secure a bus to get from A to B. And as a result, a lot of the kids and adults as well were not able to secure transportation. DEI has been very helpful on a very personal level in bringing this to our realization. And so I'm hoping that you take another look at DEI. Everybody knows there's a cost, but it is a cost that brings us at our best together. And so I hope in that light that you'll consider taking another look at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So at this time, if there are no further comments on the 2027 budget, I'm going to close the public hearing. I'll say it again, the record is open. Mr. Hurling, are you okay? So if people have comments on the budget, any aspect of the budget, you can send it by email to questions@greenbeltmd.gov to the city council. You can send it to the city manager's office, send it to both. But we are open. We'll be having a work session on Monday, kind of finalizing some aspects of the budget, and we have to approve it by the 26th. So there's still time for your comments. At this time, and I know Mr. City Manager had a few comments, we can actually make them during administrative report after we do the minutes. I believe there's some executive session minutes to be voted upon.
Yeah. I move that the minutes of tonight's meeting reflect that the council met in closed session on Monday, May 4th, 2026 at 8:13 p.m. in the council chambers. Council held this closed meeting in accordance with section 3-3051 and 8 of the general provisions article of the annotated code of the public general laws of Maryland. 1, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom it has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals. And 2, to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss legal personnel matters over which this public body has jurisdiction and related to specific individuals, and 2, to receive updates about a pending or potential litigation. Voting to close the session, Councilmember Fritz, yes. Councilmember Niesel, yes. Councilmember McKinney, yes. Councilmember Pompey, yes. Councilmember Pope, yes. Mayor Pro Tem Weaver, yes. Mayor Jordan, yes. Staff present, Josue Samaron, City Manager, from 8:13 to 9:06 and 9:21 to the end of the meeting, and Tim George, Assistant City Manager, 8:13 to 9:06 and 9:21 to the end of the meeting. No other individuals were present. The action taken was that council affirmed the city manager's personnel decision in a specific case 7-0.
Is there a second? Councilmember Pope is seconded. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Niesel?
Yes.
Councilmember McKinney? Yes.
Yes.
Councilmember Pope? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's going to bring us to the administrative reports section of the agenda. Mr. Samaron, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Good evening, citizens. We had a very successful Touch a Truck event on this past Saturday, May 2nd. It's getting bigger and bigger, and this year we had the Maryland State Police join us with their helicopter, and it was quite the show. So thank you all for the support. This weekend, we had a very successful Agreement Festival. As you know, Public Works Recreation pitched in to support that function. It went well. Mr. Mayor, to add to your events that you listed for Healthy Move May, for the month of May, we have several events coming up. We have the Wellness Walk on May 23rd. So that's 2 weekends from now. Other events that we're preparing, we'll have the Job Fair this May 16th at Bellway Plaza. And we'll have the Pride Flag Raising Ceremony on May 5th. We continue.
That's
June 5th, I'm
yeah.
sorry, June 5th. Thank you. I've reviewed the speed camera enforcement, and I included in my Friday weekly report that we had over 400 infractions on the first day. As of today, this afternoon at 4 o'clock, we had a total of 2,788 citations. So we expected a high number of citations at the beginning. I think the behavior is going to be curbed once folks start receiving those citations in the mail. As a reminder, we limited the warning letters that we send out to 2,000 letters because I have spending authority of up to 10,000, and that's what $10,000 would have covered us in terms of warning letters. So we sent that out, and we doubled our social media engagement to let people know that the stop sign cameras were up and running. But during the warning period, we display or played videos of people running stop sign. There was a question from Dr. Rosado. Why are there 3 locations over in Greenbelt West Council? We're limited on where we can put these stop sign cameras. We're limited by school zones. They can only be within half of a mile of a school zone. So when we brought legislation to council, we showed all the school zones and what locations, based on the study that we had done, where would be appropriate to place those cameras. We also had done preliminary research on these sites, how many traffic infractions we had there before the stop sign camera. Then we did the flashing stop signs, and we did performance data analysis once those flashing stop signs went in, and we saw a reduction on stop sign infractions, but we're still having infractions there. And so that's some background to council on how we ended up with the stop signs that we have throughout the city. They're limited to the school zones. And there are 3 schools in Greenbelt West. We have Spring Hill Lake Elementary School, the Dora Kennedy, and Greenbelt Middle School. So we continue to work on the 2027 budget. Mr. Gasper, there is significant investments being made in Hanover area. So I'll invite you to review page 277. We have street resurfacing for 2027 is budgeted at $1 million in road resurfacing work. So we plan to make improvements along Hanover Parkway from Ora Glen to Good Luck Road. So that's $1 million, in addition to other investments we made in the area around the bus stops and whatnot. Particularly, you brought up the point about the concrete bus stops. We replaced those sections of bus stops where we've had dips on the road. So we monitor that closely. The sites that you would observe in the city center, we've had significant dips, and that creates a road hazard condition for motorists and pedestrians. So we prioritize those sections based on the road damage. Additionally, we have bike pedestrian master plan activities at 30,000. I can go on. We've got Shram Hill Park lighting at 400,000, an improvement that we plan. We have disclosed all those capital projects in the budget book in the past. So the Shram Hill soccer field was completely redone and competition grading surface, and that cost us about $1 million. So there are significant improvements. But I hear your concerns that perhaps alternative methods to emailing, social media, and website updates are needed. One of the feedbacks that we get regularly is either we're sending too many emails and folks are losing the information among all the emails we're sending, or folks aren't getting the emails. So we actually to revisit our website, sign up for the alerts, sign up for our newsletter, and we hope to get to you. But we are putting the information out there on our website. So I invite you to look at the budget book. There are significant investments we're making in Greenbelt East and Hanover corridor.
Well, thank you very much, council member. But did you have some more?
I can stop here. I'll take questions from council.
Fritz, I'm interested, based on the citations for the cameras, do you have a rough breakdown? And later on, it'd be great to get a breakdown of, and do we get to see on our end, or is it automated that you don't get to see it, where where the vehicles are registered that are violating. So how many are in city, out of city? I'm interested in those patterns as well. So how many people have a Greenbelt registration address versus not?
I'll get with the team to see what information we provide. One of the things I did ask today with the chief was, of the 2,788 citations, how many were our city vehicles? And how many are Maryland residents? And 100% of those citations are Maryland residents. And the reason the state matters is we have greater collection authority on vehicles registered in the state than out of state. And then the other one is just to monitor our own vehicle usage. Obviously, I expect that our employees to follow the law.
I like pictures, but I'm happy that none of my pictures showed up in those cameras so far.
Don't worry, you're going to get a video of your ticket.
Remember,
You can watch.
Well, I was just going to suggest that if, whether or not we can do the breakdown by where people are registered and whether they're residents or not, if we could get a breakdown by how many violations there are at each of the 6 different stop sign locations, that would be helpful, because I believe we have 3 in Greenbelt West and 3 in Greenbelt Center of the locations that we had approved. I think there was an issue with one of them in Center that we hadn't gotten it installed yet. Is that correct? But if we can get a breakdown of where the violations are happening, I'm sure we can figure out which stop sign they're happening at, even if we don't know easily, even if it's harder to get where those residents, where their licenses are.
We are planning to do the reports. I'll discuss with the team doing a monthly report or whatever frequency makes sense. We are going to do our own trend analysis. And so the frequency will be determined how often we want to check in to look at the trend analysis. But we should be able to provide that report by camera, and that camera, there's a physical location to it.
And actually, if maybe it would be interesting to also compare the speed cameras that we have and red light cameras. Again, I know those are in particular locations. I think we tend to get them aggregated as total violations. But if we can split that out by camera and compare that to the stop sign camera, that might be interesting as well. I mean, if it takes like hours and hours, no, but I'm hoping that by camera is relatively easy.
We'll see what we can do. I think the speed cameras, that our speed camera program, that costs us more money than it brings in. We just don't have substantial violations, but that's a good correlation or see if there's any correlation with the speed cameras. The red light cameras are a little different because they are on main roads, so 193 and Kenilworth.
But and so that might not be as illustrative, since they are main roads. Those are probably capturing a lot of people just passing through.
Right, and the volume of vehicles through 193 exceeds 30,000 per day. Kenilworth, I believe, is at that same number of vehicle counts.
Other questions from council? I would note that the location at Southway and Ridge, there is a sign on the post that says stop sign camera in use. So the idea behind this is to get people to come to a complete stop. It's all about safety. So these inflated numbers are very distressing now, but the idea is the number would drop significantly over time. Councilmember Pope.
So, of course, I got a ticket. No surprise there. So going to work or coming from work, right? Because they're right there by the school. But, I'm just wondering, because I know the guy in front of me, I mean, I can see it on the video, right? No brake lights at all. I come there, my whole back lights up red, but I got the ticket. So, and I have the video, so I was gonna actually show it to you. So of course I'm gonna have to pay the $40 because it's my car regardless, right? But I'm just wondering who is reading these, who makes that decision? Because he didn't stop. I did stop.
You might have gotten a ticket too. You just wouldn't know.
Well, I don't know, but now I'd like to know, right? So I just want to show it to you how it looks. So I'm just wondering, and I'm thinking there might be another one coming.
So we have a human being reviewing the videos. So it is a human being looking at those videos and approving what's a violation. Now, the ticket that you receive has instructions on how you can dispute the charge. So if you want to dispute the charge, there is a mechanism to dispute it.
I mean, I know, if I do something wrong, I'll pay the tickets. That's not, but it just kind of, I don't know, something doesn't suits me right. And I'm just wondering if there's going to be a
other complaints about the same issue. So I think that's something we want to track as well.
Yeah, we will track any issues with the camera. We are doing quality control on the infractions. And we have made it, ensure that the system is not as sensitive as it can be, meaning that there is a small rolling that's allowed. We continue to encourage people stop at the stop sign, stop before the stop bar. But the machine is less sensitive than it can be. It could catch all minor issues. We built a little less sensitivity into it.
Stopping by the stop bar at some of the places, if you stop right there, you can't see anything if somebody's coming from the left. So you have to go further up to in order to see, because there's either parked cars or there's some other bushes or trees or what might be. So that's another, I think that's an issue as well.
I will personally review your concern and I'll discuss with the team, but however, I do encourage you to return the appeal on the form.
I think I will, but okay, we'll see.
Ms. Popa, I think you were guilty. You need to just go ahead and pay that
Oh, I
fine.
just look guilty. I know, guilty by association or something.
Mindful of the time, it's almost 9 o'clock and we have several other items that we need to get through tonight.
Two more updates. I've met with the county to discuss the deadline for filing our tax rate forms. The deadline by the county is May 15th. I pushed back, I whined that we won't have our budget approved until May 2026. And so they're allowing us to submit our tax rate certification forms on May 28th. But as this is something that we will need to revisit for next budget cycle to move up the budget approval process timeline. And finally, the work on the outdoor pool continues. It's full. We're ready for open, getting ready to open Memorial Day.
Question. Oh, may I have a question?
Yes, please.
The pool, I saw that because I asked last year to maybe prep the little infant pool, the little for the real small kids. And I know I saw that somebody was, putting brooms out. Is that taken care of? And did we make that, is it usable?
We replaced the piping last year, so that small pool works. So
Okay, I just want to
we
make
fixed it.
sure because, we have it and it hasn't been, nobody was able to use it in previous years. So I think, I know my splash pad is not in the budget. So I thought if we can at least fix up that little baby pool, that would be really helpful for parents.
Yes, and we fixed it last year after years of having a non-functional little pool. We spent sizable amount of money to fix that pool and it's working.
All right,
So
super.
it should be working. Now on the splash pad, we need about $1 million and we can get that built.
I know, I'm not going to ask for it. Okay. We have no money, I know, but I'd like to keep it in mind because who knows, we might be able to get a grant or something at some point. And I just want to keep it on the table that that's something I would like to see happen.
Or if anyone in the audience is feeling generous.
We need to go ahead and move into the legislation section of the agenda. And item number 10 is a grant matching fund resolution. And we've got this up for a second reading and a possible adoption. It's establishing a restricted matching grant fund. That's to ensure transparent, sustainable funding for required grant matches and reimbursable grant expenses supporting the city's growing success in securing external grant funding. Many of the grants that we apply for, particularly federal, state, and county grants, require a match from the city. Sort of, we have to put our, we have to match some portion of the grant. So, Councilmember Pompey, you introduced this measure for first reading. Would you like to introduce it for second reading?
Sure. For second reading and possible adoption, a resolution creating a matching grant fund for the purpose of providing funding for city grants.
Well, thank you. Is there a I'll second that. Is there any discussion from council? Okay, if there's no discussion, let's go ahead and take a vote. Madam Clerk?
I think we have a comment from the public.
Oh, my. Mr. Orleans?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just curious, beginning August 1st, it should be the starting balance should be 500,000 with a maximum balance of 750,000. If adequate funds are not, et cetera. We're starting this off this next fiscal year with monies that would otherwise have been scheduled for use. May we know all the things that they would have been scheduled for use for are not going to occur because we're starting out with a $500,000 budget for this matching grant fund, which may be a very appropriate thing to do, but that's not my question. What are we losing by contributing 500,000 to this new fund?
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Actually, we're losing nothing. We're not deferring anything. As you can see from the memo, the reason why we're saying August 1 is what we'll initially fund. The fund is surplus revenues from the previous fiscal year. So we're not looking to cut anything. I also want to highlight that we're going to spend this money regardless because we're getting grants and we're using grant money. For instance, we have $1.5 million in program open space money that's going to be used on Spring Hill Lake Rec Center. We have $150,000 match to that grant. So we are getting grants on a regular basis and we're spending the money. But this does not defer any money that was otherwise programmed. This is money that simply would have returned into the general fund, into the reserve fund after the other reserve policies have been met.
Well, thank you. Yes, please go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Tim George let the cat out of the bag on the Spring Hill Lake Recreation. We are working on reallocating the $1.5 million that were approved and allocated for the youth center roof replacement. We want to reallocate that funds to Spring Hill Lake Recreation expansion. We went in with the argument that we're not asking for new money. The city has already been granted this money for another project. We've asked to reallocate that funding for another project. We've got a tentative approval. We will be submitting our program open space annual plan to council sometime in June for approval. And we will know then whether if this project is approved to move it to the state for approval by the Board of Public Works. So just some background. It's the first time we're.
Well, thank you. Are there any other comments?
Very excited about it. We are.
Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Fritz.
Aye.
Councilmember Niso.
Yes.
Councilmember McKinney.
Yes.
Councilmember Poppy.
Yes.
Councilmember Pope.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Weaver.
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you so much. Item number 11 is a charter amendment resolution to the other council, the City of Greenbelt, to amend the section 3-22 powers of the city charter to authorize the City of Greenbelt to engage in collective bargaining with certain eligible non-exempt, non-managerial, and non-confidential city employees as provided in Article 8 of Chapter 13 of the City Code. So this is an item for first reading. Public hearing will also need to be held. So we're not going to discuss this tonight, but we are going to read it into the record. Is there a council member that would like to do so? Yes, please.
For first reading, a charter amendment resolution of the Council of the City of Greenbelt to amend Section 3-22 powers of the city charter to authorize the City of Greenbelt to engage in collective bargaining with certain eligible, non-exempt, non-managerial, and non-confidential city employees as provided by Article 8 of Chapter 13 of the City Code.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. City Manager, could you explain the timing of the public hearing and when it can appear on the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, we have a 21-day notice requirement. We will put the notice in this week's paper, and then we have 21 days that we wait before the second hearing and adoption. Ms. Anderson was June 8th will be the next time that this is on the agenda.
Okay, and the public hearing would probably take place on June the 8th as well?
We have planned on scheduling that same date unless council wants a separate date for the hearing.
Okay.
Now, for the hearing, we had planned on just having it like you had a public hearing today after the meeting start. There was at least one time where we had a public hearing at 7 because we expected a lot of public feedback. But I don't see the need for this one. I think it could just be part of the regular agenda.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move to item number 12, which is under Other business. We're going to review the updated council planning framework, incorporating recent feedback from council members, as well. Well, it's written as well as an alternative proposal. There's not actually an alternative proposal. There's actually, it's additive. It's not an alternative. But I want to thank Councilmember McKinney for putting this item on the agenda and from all of the work that has gone into bringing us to this point. Back at March 23rd regular meeting, was first updated. Proposal was first presented and updated subsequently by Councilmember Pompey and Mayor Pro Tem. And as I mentioned, I have an additive. It's not an alternative proposal. Nothing from the proposal has changed other than the addition of some 9 additional points. Councilmember McKinney, would you like to kind of frame this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I thank you all to council who have provided some additional feedback. As I talked about in our last meeting or our last work session, I believe it was, the council framework, planning framework is meant to be a guide for council to move forward in the budget process, as well as planning for legislative priorities, upcoming work sessions for the remainder of this term. It is a combination of comments, feedback, in all different types of forms that we as council members have gotten from residents of the community, and also items that were discussed earlier in the year as part of the council retreat. It hopefully will frame at a high level priority areas and focus areas, but then within each of those sort of guiding pillars, as they're called, are individual objectives for the upcoming year or so. I believe those will shift depending upon things that come up that we need to focus our attention on. So I know we've talked about this in a few meetings. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for providing your recent feedback. I think I would like to propose moving forward with adopting the planning framework with Mayor Jordan and Councilmember Pompey and Mayor Pro Tem Weaver's feedback, and then also make an upcoming work session for us to really narrow in on some of those task areas, because we just cannot cover all of those tasks within that. We have to prioritize, and we have to make sure we're getting feedback on those specific action items. But I believe we have all aligned around the focus areas in those pillars. So I would like to make that proposal to move us forward.
I appreciate that. So is that a motion?
Yes.
No, I second it.
Discussion? Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, the one I have the most concern about is in the additions proposed by Mayor Jordan, which is adopt a binding carbon neutrality target of 2035 for city operations with annual benchmarks embedded in the budget process. I'm not sure we've gotten feedback from our environmental sustainability group and our sustainability coordinator for the city about whether that's actually a feasible goal. So I'm concerned about most of the language of the others are more aspirational and not as specific. I mean, I think I would love to be able to do that, but 2035 doesn't feel like very far away. And I'm worried about putting something that specific in the framework without having appropriate time to get weighed in by the experts that we have on staff and among our residents. So I would propose an amendment to change that language to be develop a carbon neutrality target for city operations with annual benchmarks embedded in the budget process. I think it's an important goal. I just don't want to set us up for failure by putting something in our framework that is not achievable. And so I'd rather be a little bit more vague, especially because most of the others are not as specific as that.
I'll second that.
Pretty comfortable with that. What about just taking the word binding out?
Well, but again, if the target is the 2035, that's pretty specific. And I think we need to develop a plan to get there before we're going to know how long it's going to take. I'm not sure it's a good idea to put a year on it which is one that just sort of, I'm not sure where you got that number, where it came from, if it came backing, but it's just the number the details and the specifics seem a little bit much for this document. And I don't want to, I mean, it's not tying us in because obviously this whole document is not actually binding, but I'm just uncomfortable with that level of binding language when we haven't taken the time to figure out the details going forward.
Yeah, the number, I was looking for a round number, and 10 years seemed reasonable. So, but I do want this to move forward somehow. So could you repeat?
So my proposal is to amend that particular sentence, and I forget what one it's under, but to develop a carbon neutrality target for city operations in the budget process.
So you wouldn't be comfortable with trying to get that in 10 years from now?
Maybe, but I don't know that I can say that because I don't have enough information right now to put a date on it.
Okay. Yes, please.
The question I was asked around that topic was, are we going to replace all the police vehicles in 10 years to EV vehicles, trash trucks, oil heaters and gas heaters that we have for buildings? Like, what does that mean? What does carbon neutrality mean?
A lot of bicycles.
Yeah. And I think that's the issue, is that we don't know, we have to define what carbon neutrality means. Does it mean we have offsets? Can we still have gas police vehicles if we have offsets from other things? I think we just I don't think we have enough background yet to make this so that's why I suggested develop a carbon neutrality target, which would include defining what carbon neutrality means.
Yes, Councilmember.
And to the Mayor Pro Tem's point, if we are committing ourselves to offsets, that's a fiscal encumbrance that we are basically pledging to either meet or not meet. Because if we're saying we're going to pay to offset, which there's problems with that framework to begin with, plenty of people dispute whether or not you're actually offsetting the carbon you say you're offsetting with that money, but that does actually mean that you're paying for your emissions in some way. So that's a large fiscal commitment if we don't think we have a viable path. And there's a lot of things, as the Mayor Pro Tem pointed out, that are out of our control. We can't decarbonize our grid. We do not have that local control over our grid. We don't have, a lot of control over a lot of the residential uses. So, are we just saying our city operations? And I think there's just too many questions to answer right now. And I say this as someone who very much wants us to get to not just net zero emissions, negative emissions. We need to actually start healing our ecosystem, but we have to be realistic with our residents that this is a promise we can keep. We cannot make a promise that we can't keep.
Any other thoughts? Let's go ahead and take a vote on the friendly amendment, or all in favor of the amendment that Mayor Pro Tem has put forward. Please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And let's go ahead, if there's no comment, and vote on the adopting this council planning framework. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the measure passes. Thank you so much, Councilmember McKinney, for all of your work. So we've removed item number 13, and that's going to bring us to a discussion of DEI position proposals. Councilmember McKinney, once again, has put in a lot of thought and a lot of hard work in putting together a four-pronged proposal for alternative paths. So, Councilmember McKinney, would you like to just provide, and if we could put it on the screen somehow, that might be nice, because there's a lot to it, but ideally, this kind of a proposal, we would, devote a entire work session to kind of talking it through, and perhaps we can still do that in June. But because of the time sensitivity and the budget implications, we do need to talk about it, because that's what the agenda item actually is. It's not so much, we're not going to vote on the budget proposal tonight, but we're going to discuss these four contingencies. So, Councilmember McKinney, I'm tossing it over to you.
Thank you. And if council wouldn't mind, I wanted to just kind of make a brief statement that sort of accompanies what I put in the packet. And I actually wanted to start with not a policy argument, but actually a story. And some of you know that I just celebrated a milestone birthday, and my family came together, and as many families often do around milestone birthdays, and just reflecting on where we've been, where we're coming from, and where we're hoping to go. And at the center of that conversation actually was my uncle and a house. It was my grandparents' house. And my grandfather loved the house. He put basically his life's work in the house. He was in the yard up until his last days, literally mowing the grass, tending to the yard, maintaining it. And he passed away at 93, still taking care of what was his. When my grandmother passed away 6 years prior to that, something in the house held still. My grandfather kept everything exactly how it was. The pictures on the walls, the trinkets on the shelves, the artifacts of the families that had traveled from the south to the north to build something better. He had turned it basically into a living memorial of my grandmother and a museum to what they had built together. After he passed, the family had a question of what to actually do with the house because it held so much history. Do we update it? Do we keep it as is? All we knew is that we wanted to keep the house and maintain the legacy. My uncle, after years of working and living in other cities, was committed to transforming the house without erasing it or selling it. He has spent the past year making careful, deliberate decisions. Some spaces stay exactly how they were, including the bathroom where my grandmother prayed each morning. Some spaces have been thoughtfully updated. New appliances in the kitchen, but the original cabinets preserved. And entirely new spaces have been created, a deck off of the sunroom that opens the house up to something it could offer that it couldn't offer before. It's the perfect balance of honoring history while creating room for new life. And it has been not fast, it has not been easy. So when I saw the state of the house on my last visit, I'll be honest, I was taken back because of how much work still needed to be done. But I understood, and I asked my uncle to walk me through the process. The kind of transformation takes time. It takes intention. It requires someone who knows the house deeply enough to know how it must be protective and what can change. So I'm sharing this story, and I appreciate you letting me share it because I see so much of that in Greenbelt and what we're doing. Greenbelt is a city with a house full of history. The work of the Greenbelt Museum, the Reparations Commission, the strategic wayfinding work, the cemetery and the Buddy Attic studies and master plans, the Charter Review Task Force, the new Constituent Relations position and coordinator. These are not small things. These are artifacts of a community that takes its legacy seriously and has been actively building its next chapter with care. The Jedi study was our version of sitting down as a family and honestly assessing the state of the house. Not to tear it down, not to look away from what needed attention, but to understand it clearly enough to transform it thoughtfully. And just like my uncle's renovation, the study produced a plan, a real plan with specific recommendations for how we build the city's culture, how we serve our residents more equitably, how we make our organization reflect the values we say we hold. And we don't want to rewrite that history. I'm hoping to guide how we transform and build our next chapter as part of this legacy. The DEI officer played the role of the general contractor on this project, someone who understood the full scope of the work, who could bring the different teams and subcontractors together, who held the plan in their hands and made sure the work was coordinated and moving forward. And here's where we find ourselves tonight. We are in the middle of renovations. The walls are open, the work has begun, And the questions before us is not whether to finish, is how to organize the next phase well and responsibly, given the budget moment we are in. Because we know about the renovation work, the dangerous moment is to stop when we started. It is when you are in the middle, when the old systems have been opened up and then the new systems aren't actually in place. When the chaos of transition can make it tempting to stop or to hand off the work to whoever is around without a plan, without coordination, without the general contractor who knows why each decision matters. We also can't ignore the larger context in which we are doing this work. At the federal level, we are watching foundational commitments to equity and inclusion be dismantled in real time. In the environment, Greenbelt has a particular responsibility, and I would argue a particular opportunity to demonstrate what a community that takes its values seriously actually looks like in practice. How we protect and uplift all of our residents, how we hold our commitments even when the political headwinds are strong. This is part of our legacy. So what I'm presenting tonight are options for how we continue this work with intention, with care, and with fiscal responsibility, given the real constraints we face in fiscal year 2027. They are not options for whether to continue, they are options of how. Each option acknowledges that the Jedi work charted a path and that we have a documented plan. Each option recognizes that we are in the next phase of a multi-year transformation. Each option identifies what it costs, what it preserves, and what it asks of us. But I want to be clear about what every option has in common because I think it's non-negotiable. Every option requires there still being a clear general contractor, someone with the knowledge, the relationships, and the organizational standing to coordinate the work across the departments and keep the plan moving. Every option requires better transparency so that the residents who participated in the Jedi process, who gave their time and their trust, can see what has changed and is still underway. And every option requires us to make a clear recommendation to be included in the fiscal year 27 budget so that the decision is made deliberately and not by default. Not to rush, not to stop, but to be clear. It honors what we have built and uses our resources wisely and opens Greenbelt to the next chapter. So I'm presenting these as options to consider. There are pros and cons with each, and I'm hoping that we can have an open discussion and hear from our community about those. There's never going to be a magic bullet, and this is just not a one-time fits all thing. It is something that is a multi-year commitment anytime you want to see organizational change. So thank you. I appreciate you allowing me that time.
No, thank you so much. That was very eloquent indeed. So 4 options. Option number 5 or X is really not an option. That would be eliminating the function. There's been no change in policy by the Greenbelt City Council with their financial imperatives when the city manager presented this idea. And the need to take some kind of an action to reconcile the budget. I think we were taken aback to some extent. But it's a difficult budget, but this work that's begun needs to continue. It's the challenge, I guess, is really defining it well and what is the best course to continue. And I know that Councilmember Pompey has a budgetary proposal which sort of ties into this. But 4 options, shall I try and articulate them?
If you don't mind, I'd like to jump in there. So there are 4 options being presented.
Is there any way we can?
I've got them here.
Yeah. The first option is a senior level leader that would basically have direct city authority. And let me just be clear, there are actually 2 ways of looking at this. You have to look at the structure of the position. Then you also have to look at the reporting structure to ensure that it has the influence in the position to move the work forward. There's actually 2 decisions. The second probably is more of an internal organizational decision. But I do think that the pros and cons of that have a lot of merit and need to be discussed. Yeah.
It's almost 9:30. Sorry, point of order. I think before we get too far into it, I would like to move that we, because our rules say we're supposed to vote to extend the meeting past 9:30. So I'd like to, before Ms. McKinney gets too far into it, I'd like to move to extend the meeting for half an hour until 10 o'clock.
I'll second that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Sorry, I thought now that was a better point than a few minutes later.
We've extended that until 10 o'clock.
Until 10 o'clock.
The second option is more of I was trying to think out of the box type of option. We have another role that is currently open, which is the economic development director position. And there are a lot of similarities in looking at how do we make an equitable workforce, as well as building and moving forward our workforce development strategy. So if we wanted to look at more of a creative solution, there are also examples of really bringing that position together. But again, pros and cons, or sort of combining that. The pro is that it sort of keeps it at that director level. It also looks at it more holistically on how it impacts our workforce, without it being just solely targeting sort of equity and culture building. The third is probably very similar to what was presented in Ms. Banks's proposal that she did share with us, which was a manager level position that was moved into the HR department. From an operational standpoint, there are efficiencies that you can gain from that. However, the trade-off to that is that there is the potential for there being less authority because it wouldn't be at a director level position. And so you would really have to you don't always have to have the title to have authority, but you have to have the position of influence and the knowledge base to move that work forward. And then the fourth option is one that could potentially look at a transitional phase. So looking at it from a contractual type approach, where you bring on a consultant to move this sort of transition phase forward and to help us really define what the role should look like long-term and what equity and culture building should look like long-term. There's a lot of different examples of this in lots of different organizations. I've personally seen how this can be very beneficial as well. So that from a standpoint of the economic side, there can be savings from that, but also the need to have the person in that role, even if it is a consultant, needs to have the really in-depth knowledge of equity, inclusion, and organizational transformation work. You can't just put any consultant in that role, and they have to have deep knowledge of our community and what it's going to take moving forward. So again, there are all roles of pros and cons. Into the second part of it of, okay, is it an HR specialist role or is it an equity leader? I want to say that it's important to see this as a leader role. Even if we did move it into HR, it is not a generalist position. So when you do organizational transformation work, it takes somebody who has that knowledge. And so we need to look at it as such. Then the next part of the document really goes through really defining what the roles would be, which would ultimately be part of the work that this role would need to move forward. And then the last part then talks about really laying out some action steps that we can measure. One thing that I want to call out is that this type of culture building and equity and transformation work is not about just one person. It takes all leaders across the organization, but it also takes time for all of those leaders to build that competency area. It is not immediate. And so part of the role in this next phase is to ensure that we're building the leadership skills and competency area of our senior leaders within the city. So I think that maps out at a high level the document, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I really appreciate all the work that you put into this, Councilmember McKinney. I think one of the things that I just want to point out, because the question came up earlier, is, well, this position is already in the budget. Why do we need to restructure it at all? I think this gets at some of the things, to use the analogy Ms. McKinney was using, if you're paying everything to the general contractor, what if you don't have enough money to pay the plumber? And so I think what we have to identify is, are there some gaps and other things in our budget that if we keep it at the current level that we cannot do that would support our DEI vision? And I think some of the training and things that we've talked about from HR, but I think some other things that we've talked about are things like a bilingual communications person, that we don't have anybody dedicated to that in the communications office. And that is something that we know we have a gap in, not having somebody to do that. I think to get Mr. Gasper talked about some of the Strom Hills Park for things that are not staffing. We do not currently have the funding to keep that open to public hours as often as we would like and staff that Greenbelt East clubhouse and that space. So that's something that if we're talking about equity in terms of recreational opportunities and things, there are some other things that we cannot do in the current budget. The Greenbelt Cares positions that the proposal that Ms. Pompey previously put forward, as we are going to lose some really valuable Greenbelt Cares positions because we will not have our ARPA money anymore. If we want to keep these nursing assistants, the nursing coordinator supervisor, we currently do not have money in the budget for that. So if that's something we find valuable, we have to find somewhere else to shift things around. So I just think that was something that stood out in some of the comments that were made earlier, is why are we doing this if it's already in the budget? It's because there are gaps that we see in what we need to do to be able to move our diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility process forward that we don't have the money to do right now. And the possibility is shifting this position in a slightly different way, whatever of these or that we choose frees up money to actually do the plumbing or the electricity in the house.
Yeah,
Thank you for explaining that so nicely.
But I do like your metaphor.
That's a great metaphor. So this realignment, just looking at the four scenarios that are presented, option number 2, I think the role of an economic development manager is not easily compatible with what we are collectively looking for in the realm of equity and inclusion. An economic development manager spends their time out in the field. So, ideally, if you look at other cities and just similar functions, that position, you would expect that person would spend about 75 or 80% of their time out talking to businesses and working technical assistance and other things. But I appreciate it being on the table. The questions you've posed about the level of authority and how the position interacts within the city, those are operational questions. And Greenbelt is Greenbelt. So the idea that if you place a function in human resources, it's going to kill the activity. That's not necessarily the case. It sort of depends on how our city manager and assistant city manager prioritize their work and how they are placed and perceived in the organization. So it's difficult. Councilmember Fritz, did you have your hand on?
Yeah, well, in response to the economic development role, I actually do want, and I will say that regardless of the allocation of funding this year for this specific kind of role, the role of DEI needs to continue to grow throughout the city regardless. And that might mean that our financial commitments in better budget years also need to increase as well. Something I brought up to the city manager before, because we're in the process of looking for an economic development manager, but that process I believe is underway already. I had a question that related to equity in a way that's core to our identity as a city. And would this economic development manager have expertise in incubating cooperatives? Because cooperatives are a way that we can foster equity, increase participation, help build wealth for underserved communities, keep wealth in those communities. You know, in the same way that we have a not-for-profit grocery store here, we don't have one in the other parts of the city, and that is an equity issue. So, you know, if we can build a cooperative economy, we can lead on that. That might not be something that is completely housed within our government, but I do think that there is a big role for DEI to partner with the economic justice vision that is core to our mission as a city, or the vision of our city at its founding, and kind of the accomplishment of that. So I really did like that proposal. I don't think it's obviously I'm not going to, I don't have a final verdict yet, but I don't think this year is probably the year that it will happen, because there's so much going on with the hiring a new economic development manager and implementing the plans already underway. But that is something that I want everyone here to continue to think about. How can we incorporate this city's cooperative principles into our economic development planning strategy as a way of fostering racial equity? I think all these things can work together when we're intentional about them.
I think another challenge that you've highlighted directly and indirectly has to do with clarifying the rules. Someone had mentioned wondering exactly what the recommendations would be of the person who currently holds the position. And we do have some of that information. So positions and roles, they're operational, so they report to the city manager, the council, unless it gets a specific update on and has a chance to discuss strategically what the goals, how they might change or how they might shift, does not necessarily hear a detailed evaluation of how a specific employee may be defining their role and what they'd like to accomplish in a given year or over several years. Now, with the JEDI study, that's why we did actually commission a study to help define some of those goals. So you've alluded to that as well, almost like a hybrid between having a person in that role working as a manager, but at the same time, perhaps investing in maybe it's time to actually have someone from the outside come and look at where we are now and make recommendations about where we need to go, how the progress that we've made or haven't made. Councilmember Pompey.
So, you know, some of us came into council when this work had already begun. And so we sort of, you know, when at least council members McKinney, Niesel, and I, we came in when we were first getting that first phase of the JEDI report. That's sort of like right when we started. Like it had already been commissioned. We had already had our JEDI officer in place for a year or more at that point. So we sort of started at a different place of knowledge. And I think something that I have been ruminating on a lot is the fact that I wish that I, as a council member, had been a little more on top of like what's going on with the JEDI, like what's going on. And maybe I should have been asking better questions about the work that we were doing and the progress that we were making on the document that we received from Privacy. And I wish I had done that. And then the other thing I've thought a lot about is, you know, I was not here on council at the creation of the role. But I do wonder if there wasn't in some way that it was a reaction to the climate, like we need to have this DEI officer role, but maybe it was not like exactly what that role was supposed to do was not well thought out enough. Like maybe the job description wasn't clear enough. Maybe the goals weren't clear enough. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't here. But to me, when I see the fact that we were not achieving all of the things in our privacy plan, I wonder, like, how did we structure this role? And was this role originally structured in a way that it could achieve these things? And I don't, and that this is not at all degrading the person that's in the position now. I think Tyra has done an amazing job. She really led us through this work, and I'm so grateful for that. So this is not about the person. It's more about how was this role structured, and was it really structured in the way that the city needed, and was the position given the authority that it needed? I don't know. And because again, I wasn't here, I wasn't part of this thought process. But to me, I really appreciate what Councilmember McKinney has done here, because this is the thought process. Like, this is what should have happened. Like, what are the goals, and how are we achieving those goals? And that's what we have laid out here. And I'm feeling, and it makes me feel a little bit better, and it makes me feel more secure in my role going forward of sort of how I will continue to monitor how DEI is working in the city. And particularly, you know, the sort of final ask section where Councilmember McKinney really writes about like what she would like to see us doing. Like, this is what I feel like we've been missing. This way in which DEI really becomes a core part of Greenbelt and the work that we're doing. So that's all I really wanted to say. I mean, I think there are pros and cons to all of these positions. I think what's most important to me is that, you know, we maintain the funding that we have for that position, even if we don't decide, you know, at the final council vote what that position is, that we have the money there so that we can make the decision. Because I do think this work is important, and I want to make sure we're moving it forward correctly.
Other thoughts from council, or we can, Councilmember Niesel, please.
I want to thank everyone for their thoughts, and I really appreciate, especially Councilmember McKinney putting this proposal forward. And as Councilmember Pompey said, I've put a really hard mirror to myself on reflecting on what I could have done better to better support the position and those goals throughout our city. This issue needs to keep being as big as it is tonight. Every time we have a meeting, it needs to be with a Jedi lens. And we do the pledge every meeting, and we could be doing so much better in what we're actually accomplishing here. And it really, really hurts my heart to know that. But I think we need a level set as a city, and I think that we need a pro, and I think really the only move forward is to have a contractor that gives us a list of things that we must do, and then we as a council commit to putting money in the budget the next time to do those things. I do not know that this city is ready to have one person trying to steer a Titanic. I think that we need a full suite of information delivered to us and have everyone kind of on the same page moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there other comments from council? I mean, we could, we've got about 15 minutes before we extend the meeting again. We can take a few general comments from the individuals that came and prepared. The information has been available online. Councilmember McKinney's proposal has been online as well. It's good reading. So let's, with council's indulgence, let's go ahead and take a few questions. I believe Mr. Rand had his hand up first. Mr. Rand, please.
Yeah, thank you, Bob Rand, 18 Ridge Road. So I have a couple of comments. I mean, there's a lot of here. What do we do next? This is the council that refused to fund Tri-Cities Phase 3 project, which was a roadmap. I was really disappointed in that. I mean, that would have given Tyra a roadmap on how to proceed. So I want to remind you, you failed to fund that. This is also a council that just approved a platform that's significantly weaker in DEI than the staff platform. The staff platform mentions Jedi. Yours does not. None of your pillars none of your pillars talk about equity. So the staff pillar has one that's DEI and forward thinking. Yours does not. So you're a council that is not taking seriously DEI, and yet you're talking about it. Let's stop being performative. I'm really disappointed to see, Daniela, you've done some wonderful things here, but I'm really disappointed to see an option here that funds the office at the current level. I mean, was Tyra hired as a part-time person 3 years and we're going to reassess your position? I don't think so. I'm imagine that she's just really frustrated and really disappointed as I am. So I don't understand why there isn't a senior level position at the GC 15 level as in the budget that's on this proposal. I think there should be. I think we should renew our faith in her. I think she can do the work. And I think what we're seeing here is a real retraction from a senior young woman, African-American leader who's trying to do great things for the city. And I think staff has throttled her. I mean, what's she doing reporting to the assistant city manager? I mean, I don't understand what happened here. I think there's a lot to answer for. And I think what I'm hearing tonight is just waffling. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I would take issue with a couple of your statements, Mr. Rand, just in terms of discussing the specifics of an employee. It's not council's role to evaluate or to talk about an individual. We talk about policy. So we do our best. As far as the JEDI study, the phase 3, I can only speak for myself. And in saying something about that, I have to tell you, I would have preferred to get another contractor to provide some additional information. I, for one, this is just me, was not, let me just say this, the phase 2 part of the study, it did not really meet my expectations. I'll say that point blank. Dr. Rosado.
Councilmember McKinney, you have done a magnificent job, and I really appreciate your effort. And Bob, I think, is frustrated because it's not just a question of was Tyra, Ms. Smith, ever present for the discussion, the budget discussions with the council on this position? Was she here? Was a proposal just given to somebody and then it was discussed without her? So you don't, and none of you really know what she had in mind because none of you really spoke with her and none of you allowed her to present her plan. Okay? So I agree with Bob. The woman was sabotaged, pure and simple. She was sabotaged. And the council is supposed to have oversight. You're supposed to ask the questions. You're supposed to hold management accountable. What are we going to tell all those people working on the Reparations Commission? There is nobody for them to depend on to even follow through with whatever recommendations they make. There's nobody. So this is a waste of time. An absolute total waste of time. I sincerely hope, Councilmember McKinney, that something comes out of your plan. I really do. But for me, I've lost a lot. Listen, the city manager asked me how I felt. I have racial battle fatigue. I am tired. I am 82 years old, and I'm still trying to find ways for us to have an equitable society. When is it going to happen? And when are all of you going to feel the responsibility of conducting it?
Other comments? Please, Mr. Hartman.
Michael Hartman, 2 Cook Garden Way. I also want to thank Councilmember McKinney for the work that she did. I think that she included a lot of the 4 options, obviously, or I guess 5 options, are a good understanding of the situation. I'm particularly concerned, though, if the position is put in under HR because of the inherent conflicts of interest associated with the work that the DEI person does and the HR policies and practices, which may conflict with DEI goals. And having someone in that position under the leadership of only one of the departments in the cities is not a good idea and is frowned upon by professionals. It's an industry standard to keep DEI, EO, those kinds of positions outside of the HR realm. I think that one of the problems I have is that going anywhere except keeping the position as is that when you reduce the authority of a person, it reduces the influence of that person and the status of the work that they're doing. And I think it's really important that the DEI position is an all city position. It definitely should not be in economic development, which is very focused. I've mentioned HR. It's not appropriate to go into HR. But the fact is that the person who has that position is responsible for across the whole spectrum of the city services and for residents and for city staff. So I think it's incumbent upon the council to keep the position independent and focus on a wider range. One thing caught my eye, though. One thing was that the proposition for a Greenbelt Equity and Belonging Subcommittee, and that gives residents a formal ongoing role in holding the city accountable on page 3. And I find that very interesting because way back in 2015, I stood at this podium and proposed the same thing. And the city council, Mayor Jordan and Councilmember Pope maybe remember this, that it was referred to CRAB and there was actually a work session involved in that, but it didn't go anywhere. But I think it's incumbent that you keep the position viable, strong, influential, and that because each department head is responsible for the goals of the. You need someone who had wide influence to be able to work with every department head to do that. Plus, having that expertise is extremely important for this. So, those are some of the comments. I have other comments which I've shared before, including with the city manager. So I would hope that you give this position and the work the attention that it deserves, and priority. Budgets are based on priorities, and I know there are conflicting priorities, but I think it's very important that the priority of this be reflected in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fritz.
Thank you to everyone who spoke. This work is important, and this work happens because people come to these meetings and engage in these processes. As Councilmember McKinney was talking about, houses, I was thinking about dates, and I was thinking about timelines and history, thinking about how Maryland in 1864 was the last state to voluntarily abolish slavery. How in 1933 was the last recorded lynching in Maryland's history. How in 1937, 4 years later, the city was founded. How in 1965, my mother was legalized to immigrate to this country with the Hart-Celler Act. And in 1967, my parents were legally allowed to get married. how in 1978, members of the American Indian movement camped out in Greenbelt National Park. And when the mayor at the time went to greet them, the tribe wasn't the tribal representatives weren't ready to meet them because they had just marched across the country from Alcatraz to to the Washington D.C. area, and the city didn't follow up. Said it's in their hands to come back to us and let us know when they're ready to meet. And on April 28th, 2026, the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act. You cannot separate this from any of that. And, DEI is not a place where I have any intention of trying to save money. The financial commitments are going to increase, not decrease. We have this discussion now on how we set this role up for success. And the members of the public have brought very good points. I am the newest newcomer in many ways to this council, to this city, and to a lot of issues. So I have the least context on why these things were set up the way they were. And I am trying to get my arms around them. But it sounds like to me that this might eventually need to be a charter-specific office, an independent ombudsperson that reports directly to the council. Because the council needs to have a direct commitment to doing this work every single day. Because intentionally or unintentionally, that doesn't matter. The impact will not be reversed until every decision is through a racial equity lens. Every hire understands that that is how things are going to be in the city of Greenbelt, that regardless of what happens in the Supreme Court or in the Congress of the United States or wherever the President of the United States is, we are going to continue to push forward the work of this city. And that means racial equity. And it starts with people coming out and participating. So I am not looking to save money by gutting a position. But the other hand, people have brought up legitimate problems. And there are personnel matters, but Elizabeth Warren had a great quote, personnel is policy. Who sits in the seat matters just as much as what they're being told to do. So we have to carry all of that together. And I'm not saying it makes any of our jobs easy, and it doesn't. But regardless of what the financial decision is, the work will continue as long as I am in this chair. And we are going to continue to look at things through a racial equity lens and have those hard discussions about where cameras are put or where sidewalks are being placed. And, are these buildings accessible, inclusive? Are they being designed to be welcoming to all of our residents? And are we setting the employees who want to advance that mission up for success? So I do think that council moving forward, along with this country, we are at an inflection point. And we need to decide what relationship we're going to have to this racial equity work. And I think as a council, we should ask for regular updates on the implementation. And we need to be an active participant in this. We cannot simply ask any one person to fix all of our problems. And whoever we're tasking with setting these set processes up, we need to set them up for success. And that if that requires more independence, that requires more financial allocation, I think we need to find a way to do that. We might not be able to do it in this budget specifically, but I think that we have our marching orders from the people. They've said many time again that we are an inclusive city that lets all of our residents vote, that believes in having tough conversations about reparations. The city, the residents and the voters have been absolutely clear. So I think we need to be just as clear that we are going to do everything we can to keep this work moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. At this time, we need to extend the meeting a little bit longer. It's about 10 o'clock right now. Someone be interested in making a motion to that effect? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Councilmember McKinney, I was wondering if you can pivot and speak a little bit about the specifically page 4, where you've put down a final ask with some specifics as far as next steps.
Yeah, so there, as I mentioned before, there are a couple of different decision points that will need to be made, not just in this meeting, but some of them are very much organizational decisions that will need to be made by the city manager. On page 4 of the document, in the final ask, is really about, as Councilmember Fritz has talked about, as well as Councilmember Niesel, it's about how do we hold the city staff accountable? How are we being more transparent? And I appreciate the feedback that has come from the community. And I think we need to be transparent in saying we have not done our due diligence in following up on some of the actions that we're taking. So the final ask is in response of that, regardless of what the role looks like. I believe that there should be some additional things for us to consider. So the first is looking at an implementation plan. My understanding is that there may actually be an implementation plan that we have not heard from or had a work session about. So I think we need to have a work session, an upcoming work session that looks at what that implementation is. So that would have been the next step from the JEDI recommendations. How do we actually move that forward? So I'm requesting that we have that implementation plan, if it actually exists right now, for us to have a work session and have a discussion about it by fall, so by September 2026. The second is related to the fact that this is not one person's responsibility. There is distributed leadership around this. And so I'm asking that that the city manager looks at ways to build in equity and inclusion into basically the JEDI lens into performance evaluations moving into 2027. Again, I know that takes time. And that also takes additional research and guidance on what needs to happen. The third, thank you, Mr. Hartman. Didn't know the history on that subcommittee, but I think there is an active role for our community to continue to play in bringing these up. I think the way that CRAB is currently set up, it is much more outward facing. It has a very broad agenda. I would like to have a subcommittee that is more focused on the work of equity and inclusion within the city. And I think it can be time stamped, but I think there needs to be a voice from the community. The fourth is around annual progress. And, I had mentioned before, this is not just for this work. I think there needs to be our budget process does have metrics in it that talks about what the annual progress is in the work in the city. And we need to have that JEDI lens roped into that. And so I would love for that to start happening starting in FY27, where there would be an actual annual progress report that is talked about related to that. And then the final piece is related to, it is more holistic. It is that these are our values, and we need to embed the JEDI lens into all of our discussions, as Ms. Niesel has talked about, Mr. Rand has talked about, and it is our duty as council to do that. And we just need to be more intentional about it. I think we made some assumptions, and we just need to be intentional. I know that there's good work being done, and I wanted to just also thank the city for the work that has already been done. A lot of it doesn't get highlighted. There are a lot of departments doing great things that we don't hear about all the time, and I don't want to dilute that. I think we need to raise that up, and then we need to talk about that. And so I want to thank the city staff members of the committee that has worked on a lot of this work already. And we want to highlight that good work. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful. So on the idea of annual report, we get some numbers and demographics on our employee workforce with the budget. But one of the purposes of having a quarterly update is to actually obtain some of the information that you are requesting, and maybe we need to be a little bit more specific about exactly what the format is of that information as we meet with the city manager on a quarterly basis. And I do agree with Councilmember Niesel. I really feel like we need a reset. It's been, what, 4 years since we had the JEDI studies?
2.5, maybe.
2 years?
Four.
It's been a little while. We have made progress. I'm going to say this. We have made a phenomenal amount of progress over the time that I've spent on city council here in Greenbelt. That's not to say that there's not quite a ways to go. We have people that come and go at the city of Greenbelt, but our retention rate, the churn that we have in the the workforce, that is something we need to take a look at. And I think in the past, it is something that we've asked about, the turnover in employees and the demographics of the turnover. I believe we have gotten reports on that on a regular basis. So here we are. We've had a good discussion. Really, really important points have been brought up about next steps. And I'm not sure how to move forward. The purpose of this was to have a discussion so that we would be in a better position to make choices with the budget. We do have another comment from the public. Shall I take that comment?
Yes, although we do need to make sure we get to the last action item because that needs to happen tonight. So.
It does, yep. So we've got two questions, Mr. Orleans and then
I think Mr. Parks and Ms. Rosenthal. But I would ask, I think if people have already spoken, I think we shouldn't recognize them again because we really do. We have something that will cost us money if we don't act on it tonight.
Thank you. From my perspective, and I think others, every member of council would be sincerely in pursuit of diversity, equity, inclusion in all city management. Not to say that you are not currently, but one would hope that every member in all senior management would be so inclined and not to just be self-professed in pursuing that pursuit. I just have a couple of questions, and I don't know that I'm going to get an answer, but I'm going to ask the questions. Is Ms. Smith still a Greenbelt's employee? And if she is still in Greenbelt's employee, I think a request was made, reasonable, if she could address the residents of the city of Greenbelt in a council's regular meeting or a work session. That would be a good thing to do. If she's not in the city of Greenbelt's employee, when did she leave? Was there any kind of discussion amongst council in closed sessions of her leaving? Were any votes taken to affirm a position of the city manager with regard to her leaving? Are there any non-disclosure agreements that have been reached with she or others, a question asked in the past, about her leaving? I think if and when she's leaving or left, raises more questions in the minds of more people that should be answered in public session. And then we can move on. And much in Ms. McKinney's report to council is worthwhile, especially the suggestion that there be a committee of belonging. I don't know if Ms. McKinney is familiar with Berkeley's Othering and Belonging Institute, but it's an important ongoing question to be pursued.
Mr. City Manager, are you in a position to respond to any of those inquiries?
It's our policy that we don't comment on personnel matters. What I would say is that the position is funded through June 30th in the budget, and Ms. Smith remains on payroll for the remainder of the position being funded.
Thank you. Mr. Parks?
I'd like to thank the council and everyone for this wonderful night of true democracy. In any case, sometimes sometimes simple justice is important, especially for moving forward, especially for healing, and especially when it comes to diversity and inclusion. Because there are times when you encounter a type of hostility that's too much to deal with. And if we have had a total of 5 African Americans who have left the fight, simple justice cannot be achieved unless we address that pattern. And so I want to thank everyone for everything you're doing. I feel confident that we're going to move forward and become a greater and greater community. I just want to reinforce what Dr. Rosado brought up and Mr. Orleans emphasized. Let's find out what happened, so that we can go beyond policies and theories and ideas and positions and all the things that can make it very difficult for a great community like ours to become that much greater. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rosenthal.
Laura Rosenthal, 2 Court Garden Way. I've only met Ms. Smith one time, so this is not at all a reflection on her personally. I don't know anything about her skill level or if she's still planning to work here. But one of the things that Councilmember McKinney put in her report was that there wasn't enough transparency. And so since that position was filled, I have no idea what the Ms. Smith has been working on. I only know that shortly after she was hired, then you all contracted with Tribesi. So in my mind, she was like a clerk that was coordinating the consultants, and I don't know what happened with their recommendations and how much it was up to her to implement the recommendations. Kind of related to all this, I really like the part on page 2 where Councilmember McKinney talked about the person would have to be a leader who coordinates the whole plan with strong champions, and mentioned all the different departments: city manager, assistant city manager, HR, planning, public works, parks and recreation, cares, finance, police, et cetera, and economic development. So it seems to me that economic development would be one of many, many areas that this person would work with. And that's why I would not personally be in favor of just putting them together, because why would the person just be working with economic development if they had 10 other departments to work with? I personally don't like the idea of a consultant or a contractor, because I think people see that as an outside person, not someone that's really in a position to tell people what to do. They're just there to make suggestions. So I don't know why we couldn't hire a person that was as skillful as a contractor or a consultant. Why wouldn't we, aim for the highest person that had already done this in several other cities and was very competent, and yet was willing to accept a position here. Yeah, and the only other thing is that, again, as Mr. Hartman said, putting the person in HR really means that they're reporting to the HR director, and anything that the HR director doesn't want them to do doesn't get done. In addition to the person wouldn't be at the same level as the other department heads. I don't quite understand the difference between reporting to council or reporting to the city manager, but it seems like you want a person at a very high level. And yes, definitely a lot more transparency so that we know, not just in a report or something, but we actually know what the person's doing, what kind of changes are being made. So thank you for listening to my thoughts.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, Councilmember McKinney, I'd like to thank you for putting together these thoughts, this proposal. I think it's very, very important. It's obvious to me that this topic and this discussion belongs in a format where we can have a deeper and longer and more involved discussion, such as a work session. And perhaps that's something we can actually do in June. We have a few dates that are open. But short term, we do have to make some decisions with the budget this coming Monday in order to meet the goals and deadlines. Mr. Summerone, you look as though you have something to say.
No, I'm listening.
None. No, please, do you have any reactions to the discussion tonight?
I'm taking it all in. I see all the good points that everyone's made. And obviously there's more discussion to have. So thank you for your work on this. I was not here when the position was envisioned. And I share the sentiment with council and the public that we had a plan at the beginning and this has helped move the work forward. I am proud of a lot of the work that we have done as an organization. When we look at DEI, it's all inclusive in how we're addressing sidewalk repairs, road replacements, even lighting. Lighting is an area of public safety that's important for us. We've had fatalities on our roads. We're looking to do Vision Zero. Their DI work, it's all encompassing in what we do. And I think we've got a lot of wins in the 2.5 years that I've been here. And there's a lot more work to do.
Councilmember Fritz.
Yeah, I guess in terms of how this pertains to the fiscal 27 budget, I know that Councilmember McKinney had some estimates for roughly how much each of these would cost. Based on the current assumptions that we've made budgetarily, would you be able to give us an idea of how much of a gap we would need to fill to fund at these 4 different levels, very roughly, so that I want to make sure that we have funding reserved in the budget so that once we have a path forward, we have the money immediately to take action, right? If we are going the contract route, and I say that with advisement that I don't want that to be seen as us, turning it into one-time spending. Like there still needs to be an ongoing investment in DEI, right? And so the contract would not just be a one-time contract and then once again we're done. But the senior level, director level equivalent, and the other, I'm not sure if there's as much we can do with the economic development role as people have said. But I guess the 1 and 3 options, senior level leader or the HR manager role, kind of based where we are in the current budgetary balance, how much of a gap we would need to fill. And then asking you to do some extra credit would be, what are some ways that we could fund that? What are some equivalent offsets that we could have? And I want to be honest, I want to have this discussion in public. So if there's things that you think there are operational efficiencies that we can have, that, I think the public deserves to know, how much is this going to cost, right? These different levels of funding, because, we have to we have to decide on priorities. And if people don't have that information of how much we're offsetting or how much of a tax increase that would be, right? We're talking about a revenue enhancement when it comes to our utilities, but, that sometimes these commitments have costs, and I would want to have a transparent discussion in terms of revenue options to close these gaps, and in terms of other offsets. What are other departments that are maybe not core services that we could reorganize a little bit? Because for me, DEI is a core service moving forward, and it will always be a core service in my mind.
Councilmember Pompey, and we do need to move on to.
I was just going to say, we have the money in the budget for it now, and the proposal would just be not to move it, to keep it, right?
Correct. We have 150,000 in the budget now for the function. When we looked at that cost, we didn't make any other cuts or enhancements because the $150,000 is in there. However, we are pulling from cash reserves, and I'll be making an additional cash reserve transfer request to make up for the shortfall in health insurance cost. The other budget, other amount that we're working numbers to figure out for the budget are the abatements. We have received about $1 million in property tax abatements. I was suspicious that they were really high. And so I've done a deeper dive on all the abatements. We've paid out for abatements going back to 2022 and 2023. So that's why it's so high for some of the commercial properties. I don't know if that trend's going to continue, but I know that what we have in the budget now for abatements is too low based on the $1 million of abatements that we've had this year so far. So I'm working on those numbers, but we will need additional additional transfers from cash reserves. So anything you add, we're looking at cash reserves.
But this is currently included. This is still funded in FY '27.
Yes, but we are using cash reserves. We're using cash reserves.
So in order to do that, we may have to use cash reserves.
And I'm saying I just want to be transparent about that gap, because if we were to do any of these things, people would want to know the delta.
Yes, and for simplest terms, we're already using $2 million of cash reserves.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to move to item number 15, which is the WMATA Trail Bridge and Boardwalk Engineering. The city seeks to engage Dewberry and Davis to provide engineering and design services for the WMATA Trail Bridge and Boardwalk component of the WMATA Trail Project, the Greenbelt Station Trail, in the amount not to exceed $150,000. City Council is being requested to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Dewberry and Davis with a scope similar to that which is presented in the handout, the background information which was distributed. And I believe, Mr. George, are you the expert who is going to provide a quick summary on this?
Yes, but we should have a motion on the floor first. I move to authorize the city manager to engage Dewberry and Davis to provide engineering and design services for the WMATA Trail Bridge and Boardwalk in an amount not to exceed $150,000.
Is there a second? Okay, Councilmember Pompey has seconded. Mr. George, can you provide us with a quick overview with what this entails and why we need to do it right now?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So the bridge and boardwalk path that is running through for the WMATA Trail, because we're using MTAP money, it is subject to MDOT requirements and MDOT level of development. The current planning does not meet that standard. So what we need to do is we will need to have the standard redone and have the boardwalk redone and re-engineered to meet the MDOT standard because we're using MTAP money. This is not something we had planned for. One of the other things is when Carrie, our grant coordinator, was going through all the bond bills, we have half a dozen bond bills on the trail alone, as well as the others. It was discovered that this particular bond bill for $75,000 is 100% match. Most bond bills are not. This one is. And that this bond bill expires at the end of May. And if the funds are not fully expended by the end of May, we will lose the $75,000 bond bill. So unfortunately, and this is why we're bringing it to you at the last minute, this is not something that we anticipated from MTAP to make us redo all the engineering. That was not something we found that out only in the last month or so. And also we did not anticipate this grant going away. The reason why we kind of rushed and I asked the city manager to allow us to put it on the agenda for tonight is that in addition, so once we have this approval and the contract and the scope and contract is drafted, Department of General Services has to approve it. And once they approve it, then the city manager can fully execute the contract. Then we can pay it. Then all the receipts and the canceled checks from the payment then have to be submitted. And all that has to happen by May 30, which is a very tight timeline, which is why we couldn't really extend it. We couldn't go to the next meeting. Unfortunately, this work has to be done no matter what. So if we don't get this funding from the bond bill, we're still going to have to spend it. We'll have to come up with $75,000 from another source to cover our share of the project.
Yeah, thank you so much. I have a question. Is the contractor, have you gotten assurances that they're in a position to actually complete this work between now and June 1st?
No, they would not complete the work.
But the money has to be encumbered.
It would be spent. It has to be
spent.
So it'd be spent, and then they would draw down that money over time. Now, Dewberry is the contractor of record. They're the ones that have done all the work up to this point. So they would simply be continuing the work that they've been doing for us.
Okay. Are there other questions from council?
What's the anticipated timeline that, bet to your best guess?
For the scope of work?
Maybe more so because we are encumbering the funds. How long will the scope of work take? And then is there an estimate of when the project would start, shovel in the ground?
The scope of work, we have an expected estimated scope of work that Tim has printed out. The actual scope of work, the Dewberry team is uncomfortable providing the scope of work because we have a meeting on Friday with MDOT over what work is required. So this project is particularly challenging because we're looking to engage a contractor without the fully defined scope of work because we do not know what MDOT is going to require. And that's not going to happen until Friday. So we certainly wouldn't want to be doing business like this. The driving pressure here is the bond bill that expires.
If we don't vote on
9/30.
this tonight, then we're losing the
Right.
$75,000 and we have to go find it somewhere else.
Right, right. And I am one that, I don't like leaving money on the table, but this project has had delay after delay after delay. And this is not the only one that we're at risk of losing. We're at risk of losing TAP funding.
Domino effect.
Domino effect. So this is just one hurdle. What happens if we rush to make this and we end up losing TAP? That's $1 million. I don't think this project can move forward if we lose TAP. Like I'll be frank, it's a $4 million project. We lose we already need to fund another $1 million for this project. If we lose $1 million, we need to raise $2 million for this trail.
Yeah, and bottom line, I'm not comfortable in having this project fall through. It's speaking of commitments to the residents of Greenbelt Station who bought their townhouses and their condos with the understanding that there would be a connecting trail. This is really not negotiable. When you talk about delay after delay after delay, let's be honest about what's caused those delays. And it's the federal
FBI
government
project.
and the FBI
Yeah.
waffling back and forth, back and forth. I mean, that's really hurting us, has hurt us in a very tangible way. And I just really want to make that clear if it's not clear to everyone. So if there's no additional comment, let's go ahead and take a vote. Madam Clerk, do you have to call the roll on this? No? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you so much. And at this point, let's go ahead and close the meeting. Could someone please make a motion?
I
Did
move to
miss someone?
adjourn.
Okay. And we're bypassing the council.
We
because
can,
we're
the
doing-
activities can
Oh,
be
say-
done
So
offline.
all in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Okay. This meeting's over.
Do a roll call on the adjournment? No.